Ask any corrections or changes to them at this time? Okay, so can I get a motion from someone to approve the 2018 annual meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Brian. Okay. Second from Matt. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. I'm going to ask Jim Elseth to come up and give his report, the treasurer's report.
I would just like to highlight a few items on the treasurer's report. You all have it, the financial summary in your packet. And I'll try to answer any questions when I'm done here. I'd like to take notice of the membership dues that we got last year, $22,389. We had 257 people contribute to dues. We had 21 businesses that contributed the $2,000. And it was you people that contributed to the membership that also contributed to the fireworks fund, where we had $10,395. And if you go down the list, you come to AIS grants, $27,000. This came from 4 different organizations, from the DNR, Stearns County, Meeker County, and Union Grove Township. And then I guess you can read down through the expenses. The only one I wanted to make note of was the fireworks. Cost us $10,000. And you can see that our income exceeded our expenses by $21,138. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Okay, Bert, Stanley, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Sherry Heike. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. The next item on our agenda is a report from the Paintsville Township. Mr. Lemkill is here, Steve Lemkill. He's a new member, and I asked him just to introduce himself and say a few words.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. Guess you guys got a lot more work than I do here today. So I'm basically here to introduce myself. I'm one of the new board members for Paintsville Township. We do have a relatively young board, not as age-wise, but new people. Myself, Butch Mueller, and Mark Dingman are here to hopefully help everybody in whatever way we can as Paintsville Township. Currently, the bigger projects are the ice arena and a solar garden that the township is looking at building, and anything else you can do. I believe all our numbers and everything are posted on our webpage now. And as we learn our new jobs and purposes here for the township board, we're here to help. Anybody have any questions for me? Good luck at your meeting.
Yep. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Chris Goddard. He's the administrator of the North Fork Crow River Watershed, and he has his intern, Tim, and I'll let them talk.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Chris Goddard. I'm the administrator of the North Fork Crow River Watershed District. It's great to see everybody this morning. It's a lot bigger crowd than I've seen the last couple of years, so that's good. I'd like to thank KLA for being a great partner. You've worked with us on a lot of projects, and one of them is you've helped us by funding an intern position. So I would like to introduce Tim Struve, our intern for this year, just have him give a little background where he's from and some of the things that he's been working on in the district.
Hello, I'm Tim Struby, the intern. Originally from Anoka, Minnesota. Happy to be in the Bruton area though, as it's where my grandparents live and love the area. So yeah, it's currently going to school at Itasca Online for geographic information systems, so it's mapping. Throughout this internship, I've been able to kind of enhance my skills just out in the field with GIS and learning about water quality and ways to improve water quality through best management practices and stuff. So yeah, I'm just learning a lot and looking forward to learning more as it goes on.
Thanks, Tim. That's all right. Also, I want to thank KLA too. They've sent numerous representatives up to our Citizens Advisory Committee. I will not missing anybody, but people have been fairly consistent in sharing. Kevin Farner, Karen Langmo, and Ken Hess. So we thank them for being involved in kind of directing, advising as to what the watershed should be looking at as far as projects. I brought with today, and I didn't put it out on the tables, but we have the 2018 Lake Koronis report, and that's just kind of a summary of the monitoring that we do on Lake Koronis. I believe we're out once a month for maybe 5 months, but May, June, July, and August, September. And they go out and they take water samples that we do test, and they also take Secchi disc readings to measure kind of the cloudiness, if you want to call it, of the water. And so they've all been summarized on this report. In general, the lake is showing improvement. You'll see it on the second page. We have enough data points that we kind of can put some confidence in the results, and so generally everything looks like it's improving on the parameters that we do monitor. So I will leave a few copies of these on the table outside, so if you want to look at one, please pick one up. They're also on our website. Our website is www.nfcrwd.org. So you're welcome to jump on our website and see what else we're doing. The website? www.nfcrwd.org. So it's the acronym for North Fork Crow River Watershed District. It's a mouthful. Some of the projects that we've been working on, we have several grants that we've been actively working on for the past few years, and basically they're what we would consider with the sub-watershed analysis grant. We've been able to go out and do some modeling, work with a consulting firm on this, where we identify potential DMPs or best management practices that can be installed throughout the sub-watersheds. And what I mean is sub-watershed is just a much smaller area that we focus on. Some of them could be tile inlet improvements, sediment control basins, retention basins. There's just all kinds of BMPs that we can look at. So we've had the analysis has been completed, and right now we're out driving around and field verifying what the computer model is telling us. You know, computer model can tell you anything unless you go out and look at it to make sure that makes sense. That's what we're doing right now, is validating that model. I think at the last meeting we had just adopted the One Watershed, One Plan. So that was good news. Our funding, our implementation funds were just released not too long ago, and we're still figuring out that process on how to disperse them. It's kind of new to all the partners in the One Watershed, One Plan. I think we had $640,000 available on this first round. So right now it's looking how to disperse those funds. We have a ranking spreadsheet that's set up. It's pretty much for projects that are ready. So if you've already a bigger project that requires engineering, if you have the plans ready to go, those are the types of projects. So it could have been projects that have been put on the back burner to get those moving forward. I I know there was some interest earlier. I go to a lot of meetings. The DEMCON landfill over by Hawick, I know it's kind of a hot button issue for a lot of people. I attended those to just try monitor what's happening within the watershed. Our rules probably don't affect it. We don't have anything, a direct say in anything like that, but I try to keep up with what's happening in the neighborhood. I also had several meetings now with the highway projects, the gap projects that are being worked on. I just met with an engineering firm Thursday, and they asked what we would like to see, and I looked at their plans, and they're looking at a lot of infiltration areas along the side of the road and what they can do to help with water quality. MnDOT has some other ideas that they've thrown out that I haven't seen what they mean yet. They got some new terminology, so learning that as I go. Another initiative the district has been extensively involved with is we're going through a boundary change right now. Through some of these sub-watershed analyses, they do hydrologic modeling, and we're seeing that water's coming in from different areas than when our boundary was originally proposed. So we're trying to update that to reflect, the water's always come in, but now we're going to update our boundary to reflect what has been happening. So that's in the process. Recently, Piers Lake, and this is going to kind of talk or segue into what you're going to be talking about later on with your project, but Piers Lake petitioned the North Fork Board to establish an aquatic invasive species AIS project. The board accepted the petition, which initiated the project. We've gone out, got to have an engineering report that's been received and has been submitted to Bowser and DNR for review. The next step is we have to have appraisers go out and look at the project to assess benefits to that project. They will be out in 2 weeks. Once we have all that information together, then we can look at a final hearing and accept testimony from all those involved and let the board make the decision if the project's a go or not. So that's just a quick update. If anybody has any questions, I'd be willing to answer them.
I have a question. Your purpose, what is the purpose of the DNR, the PCA, and the EPA, which the taxpayers are paying for? It seems like you're doing all their work and they're doing nothing. I mean, what is the purpose? If the DNR doesn't take responsibility, then why do we have them? More importantly, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, which is water quality, and then we have, of course, our nice EPA. So what is the purpose of all them if you're doing all the homework? Why would we do that?
EPA is a federal entity, and they kind of delegate their authority back down through the states, through the PCA, DNR, those types of organizations. So I'm going to leave those out. Each of those organizations has a set of rules that they operate under as far as what their regulatory authority is. Watershed districts also have our own authority under 103D. And so we kind of work together trying to reach a common goal, because the state agencies will set water quality, what do I want to say, not limits, some may be limits, or they have a goal that we want to try to attain. And so that's where we come in and try to work with the local landowners.
Well, Lake Minnetonka now, I have a friend of mine who lives there, and a serious outbreak. They have no idea where it came from. But the PCA is involved in that outbreak, as well as the DNR, as well as the EPA. So they're in there, and they're not turning around saying it's a lake owner's problem. What they're getting at is that it's a problem, and those are, water quality is the jurisdiction of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And what I'm getting at is if we have a problem with water quality, why isn't the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency here? No different than if we were to have a tornado in this town, there'd be some type of federal and state disaster that would come into play. And I'm confused because it seems like they're all falling out. We just indicated that the DNR needs to look over what you do, well, why do they have to look it over if they're not doing it?
I guess I can't get directly answer to your question, other than when the other agencies are involved, they all have different authorities that they can bring in to evaluate a problem.
Well, I can't answer it, you can, so then it's okay.
Sorry, I can't. I really don't know. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. The next item on our agenda is voting the election of board members. I would first like all our board members to stand up and introduce everybody so you can see who they are. I have Sue Iyer. Sue's been on our board for 9 years. She's currently our vice president, and she is going off. She's been very much a crucial and integral part of this organization, and we will dearly miss her. I think we should give her a round of applause. And Sue lives over on the North Shore. The next gal is Susan Schaefer. She's not too far down. She's been on our board for 3 years, and she is up for re-election. She's wanted to re-up. Kevin Farnham has been on our board for 8 years, and he's our kind of our AIS guru. I've been on the board for 8 years, and Kevin and I live over on kind of the Northeast Shore. Ken Hess has been on our board for 10 years. And he's over by where Sue and Sue live, kind of North Shore, Riley Flanders. He's his 2nd year. Jim, and he's kind of all over the lake. He's up on top and over on the East Bay. He's at his folks over in the West Bay. Jim Loslaven is over in the western part. He's been on our board for 3 years. He's up for re-election. Dan Sigler, he's the head guru over at Koronis Ministries, and he's been on our board for 3 years and is up for re-election now. Jeff Erdman has been on our board for 4 years, and he's our computer guy. Let's see, where's Alex? Alex Niokas is our secretary, and you've already seen Jim, so I think I covered everybody. Yep, I got Riley. Yep. So anyway, you guys can sit down. So Sue Schaefer, Jim Loslaven, and Dan have expressed interest in being re-elected to the board. We also have 3 new faces that have expressed interest, and I'm going to ask them to stand. Is Jacob Holk here? Okay, Jacob isn't here. Rhonda Arnold. Rhonda is, her husband Mike has a construction business and has built lots of houses around the lake. And they just bought a new place on the lake. And they are involved with the Koronis Cafe. And Greg May, where's Greg? Greg has been on the lake 4 years, am I right? 5 years? 3, okay. And he's over by Bugby's. So we've got 6 individuals who are interested in the board. You do have a ballot. I think the only reason we'll need to use the ballot is if I have to, according to our bylaws, I have to take nominations from the floor for anybody interested in being on the board. So do I have any nominations? Or anybody interested? Yes.
My name is Jen Knocker.
Okay.
We did fill out the paperwork, sent it to the board.
Okay.
I would express
Do you want to be put on the ballot? Okay, so if you would put Jennifer Maher on your ballot. If you do not have a ballot, maybe take a sheet of paper from the minutes or something, or Randy's got some, so who needs one? Back of your agenda, yeah, you can use the back of your agenda.
If you need one, raise your hand.
So if you need one, raise your hand, we'll come around.
What's Jennifer's last name again?
Maher, Meagher. So I'm going to ask those of you who do have your ballots, please fill out for 6 people. And then I'm going to have my board members run around and pick up the ballots, and we'll have to count those. Yeah. Susan Schaefer. Ziegler, Jim Loslaven, if you want to just put Dan Z, Susan S, Jim L, Jacob Polk, Jennifer Maher, Rhonda Arnold, and Greg May. Do I need to repeat those again? Okay. Well, you can. You have 6 Okay, well, I'm going to ask a couple of my board members to count the ballots, and then we'll get through. When they're done, then we'll interrupt the meeting and announce who's on. Okay, always fun to have lots of interest. I love it. All right, the next item on the agenda are committee reports. We've got AIS Starry Stonewort, we've got membership, and we've got water quality. So Kevin, you're on.
Good morning. Let me try and give you a quick recap of the aquatic invasive species on Lake Koronis. We have 2 projects on the lake that deal with aquatic invasive species. The first project has to do with the inspection program. The second project has to do with the starry stonewort management that project that we'll be talking a lot more about that at 10 o'clock or later on today. So let me give you a quick recap of the inspection program on Koronis. The inspection program costs last year $58,000. Originally, the whole thing for the watershed last year was $81,000. I mean, we've come a long way, and a lot of that is thanks to your guys' help. We started out back in 2014, 2015, and it was $19,000 is what was being spent, and that was across the watershed. We've always treated the inspection program for Lake Koronis as a watershed issue, so we take into consideration all the way on the north end of the watershed, Grove Lake, and we include Rice Lake and Piers, which is part of the watershed, doesn't have any public accesses on it. But anyhow, funds and stuff that when we go for grants as a watershed through Chris Sconard's office. They're the administrator of the inspection program, and they hire and contract out with a contractor that actually is out of Paintsville, and they do a great job for us in doing the inspections and being sure that they have the manpower and stuff to do that. The first couple of years, part of the reason that the expenses were down is it was a much smaller program, and the watershed actually managed those people. So it's changed over the years. The inspection program in 2013 was 1,936 hours to now it's over 5,000 hours that we're doing on Koronis. Just to give you an idea of the numbers, we roughly have around 3,000 inbound inspections last year is the numbers that we had, and there's about 2,000 outbound inspections. We've always felt that you do both, you do inbound and outbound. Inbound, we're trying to kind of protect us from the next aquatic invasive species that could be coming our way, and outbound, we're trying to be sure that, I mean, if you think back a couple of years, people always said, you know, Lake Minnetonka, you're the kind of the mother lode of Eurasian milfoil and zebra mussels across the state. Well, unfortunately, Koronis is kind of that mother lode for starry stonewort. Whether we were the first lake or not, we were the first lake that it was discovered. And that's, just to let you know, I mean, I sit in a lot of meetings and I kind of hate to be there, but that's kind of where we are. So we do the outbound inspections also to protect the other lakes in the state, and I think that's our obligation to do that. Just to give you an idea of the violations, we see about 3% of the boats coming in with their drain plugs still in. That's a violation of the law. We have about 1% of the boats that come in with some kind of an aquatic vegetation or an animal attached, and so those get denied launch when they're inspected. When they're not inspected, guess what happens? You know, we have a lot of contributions for that. So just to give you an idea, we get a grant from Stearns County AIS Committee for about, I think this last year was $33,000. We get a grant from Meeker County Aquatic Inspection or AIS program, and I believe we got $12,500 from them, and we get a contribution of $4,300 from the city. We get a contribution of $6,000 from the township. Thank you, Steve. We get a contribution of $1,500 from Union Grove Township. Thank you if there's anybody here from Union Grove. Bob is here. I mean, those are our partners in this, and we go out and we talk to each group every year and talk to them about what their money has done, you know, for the lake. And it works out. It's a pretty good partnership we have with all of these folks. And I love to go to Union Grove because after the township meetings, I get cookies and milk. I mean, let's face it, you know, that's what it's all about. So we're really great with our partnerships, but don't overlook the fact that you folks contribute to the AIS funds directly. And that's the kind of stuff that makes a difference. It really allows us to put the money in. So our contributions for AIS on the Treasurer's Report have just gone up and up every single year. And so we appreciate that. And that's a program which is different than what we're going to be talking about with the Starry Stonewort project. And that the inspection program will be ongoing. We don't see any way to stop that. DNR does not give us, I don't remember seeing DNR giving us any hours this past year. This past year they did, so far this year they've given us none. Last year they did give us a few hours, not very many. And last year DNR even had problems getting their positions filled. So they didn't have any money and they didn't have people. So we just didn't get anything. The Starry Stonewort Management Project, and like I said, you'll hear more about that. Starry Stonewort, just a reminder, was in 2015 is when it was discovered. We started into a 4-year pilot project, getting funds for a $425,000 match from the legacy funds, which the Outdoor Heritage Fund, which we all voted for years ago. You know, the process that we've developed, there was all kinds of conditions to get on that grant, and one of them was, and I'll probably have to say this later because I'm sure a question will come up, is we had to have an innovative approach. We could not go and do something that someone else had done. And it had to be innovative, it had to be different, and that's how we ended up getting that money. And I'm still, just so you know, I still write quarterly financial reports, and twice a year write out another report, and so that's ongoing until the grant is done, and I'll be talking about that. So the process that we developed helps with help from our consultant at Clemson University, Dr. John Rogers, who some of you might have heard speaking right here for us several years ago. Certainly seems to be working. One of our goals was to spread the word about that project around, around the state. I've gone as far as Buffalo, New York, and spoke to a lot of the academia people and other managers around the states, and to tell them just what we've been doing here on Koronis. And we're pretty well known for working hard to try to figure out how to manage Starry Stonewort. There's just not a lot of information that's out there on how to do that. This year sampling, just to let you know, we've just started our project. This year, last week Monday, so we're in full swing now. 2 weeks ago, we were out looking at the starry stonewort and it wasn't ready. We have to have it at a certain height before we would either chemical treat or before we would use the mechanical harvester. We now have our own mechanical harvester, thanks to a family that lives on the lake. The name is Mathewitz, that have stepped up, and even though we had contributions from some of you to buy our own mechanical puller on the lake, that family was willing to step up and purchase it, and away we are. They operated as a nonprofit. Yeah, absolutely, thank you. I mean, that was just amazing that we were able to do that. And we have a great relationship with them. We meet with them often to try to keep, so we communicate well. And as part of that, we communicate with DNR. I think DNR would say we communicate with the Lake Association on Koronis, probably as good, if not better than most. So we still need DNR as their involvement in the project. We also use a third-party auditor to verify all the results, so we're not doing that, we use someone else. And thanks to, I'm going to introduce Steve McComas. Steve, stand up. And Steve McComas is with his company is Blue Water Science, and he comes out, and we have a schedule that he comes out and knows the lake as well as any of you guys do from an aquatic vegetation standpoint. So thanks, Steve, for being here, and Steve's here if we have other questions and stuff. Steve is an independent auditor, very well recognized by DNR as being kind of a guy to go to with many years of experience and stuff doing it. There'll be more information later on and more time for questions and stuff later on. So that's the AIS report.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. The next report is kind of my report. It's membership. I'm the one who kind of handles that. I don't have a lot to say other than that we did revamp our mailing list this year. I hope we got everybody's addresses right. I hope no one's getting duplicates. We finally have nice tools to work with on both county websites as far as getting the right property addresses, and because there's been a lot of turnover on the lake in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years. So my goal every year is to hopefully get at least half of the lake as members. We're close this year. I'm kind of tickled pink, I guess, a little bit. A year ago, we had about $18,000 at the time of the annual meeting, and we had about 181 members. This year, we're at 23,000, and we've got more members than we had total all last year. So I'm happy. I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everybody's support here. I think we all love Lake Koronis, and we want to make it a better place. So again, thank you from myself and from the KLA board. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, the next committee report is Ken Hess.
Thank you, Karen. Members of the Water Quality Committee are Sue Schaefer, Sue's out counting ballots, right? Riley Flanders, who's also counting ballots, and Sue Meyer, who's also counting ballots. So our committee does a good job of counting, as you can tell. Our charge is to do whatever we can to improve the quality of water on Lake Koronis. And that includes contaminations of contaminants of different sorts entering the lake, erosion issues, etc. And if you have any concerns about any of those issues near your property or on your property, please give us a call and let us evaluate it and see what we can do to help resolve the issue. A couple of the projects we're working on right now, we have an issue near the intersection on the south side of the lake of County Road 20 and 25. We have what appears to be some agricultural material entering the lake via a culvert or a tile. That's causing a little bit of a problem. We had a report from a landowner about a month ago. And following up on that and getting the exact address and so forth, we found out that This has been an ongoing issue for a long time, and we'll be meeting in about 10 days to start work on that issue again to see if we can't somehow or another get some resolution to the problem. We need landowner support. We can't go on someone's property and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we need their cooperation, and our goal of KLA and our committee is to work out a win-win situation for everyone involved. So we're willing to work with landowners, and hopefully all landowners will want to be working with us on that. So hopefully we'll have more information on that later on this fall. We are addressing now, finally, after many, many years, the formation of the delta on the west end of the lake. You've seen that down there near the old Rumble Bridge. Water bringing basically erosive material in from about 1.5 miles, 2 miles of a ditch that goes way up south and then west of Koronis, underneath the county line, and then beyond. We have a number of different landowners that have water that drain from their fields and they enter one large ditch that comes rushing through underneath County Road 20 and into the lake, and that's where that delta keeps forming, getting larger and larger and larger. If you live down in that area, you know what I'm talking about. It's the old, down with the old Con Winter. Some of us old-timers refer to locations by previous owners. Newer people on the board probably, you old-timers like me probably know where it is. Con Winter's property down there. And we're meeting on the 24th with the final 2 landowners to get them to sign off officially on the final plan. There'll be about 4, possibly even 5 holding ponds that will be created south of County Road 20 that will basically hold back some of the water that is rushing into the lake that actually forms that delta. We've had great cooperation from all landowners, the 7 landowners. Everyone has agreed to it finally, and this has been a project we've worked on for, previous boards have worked on for a number of years, and hopefully we can bring that to fruition now shortly. Since 92% of the phosphorus entering Lake Koronis comes from the North Fork of the Crow River. So usually, years ago, we used to hear about, well, the people who live around the lake are spreading fertilizer with a lot of phosphorus in it and so forth. They're messing up the lakes. Well, you know, we contribute some to that, but 92% comes from the North Fork of the Crow River. And that includes not only phosphorus and nitrates entering into the river directly, but also via all of the judicial ditches that go way back miles and miles from the North Fork of the Crow River. Farm fields then will enter their water into the judicial ditches. They'll flow, as I said, for a couple miles even, and then wind up in the North Fork of the Crow River, and of course, within about 3-4 days, that's in Lake Koronis. So we work with, one of our major issues is trying to figure out how we can decrease that large amount. KLA, as you were at the meeting last year, set aside $12,000 to help landowners with what we call the rock inlet projects. A lot of the tiles, you know, let me back up a little bit. The buffers are really helping. There's no doubt about that. The 16-foot and 50-foot buffers are helping, especially during slow rains. The water will go across these buffers and then settle before the water gets into the river or the judicial ditch. However, during heavy rainfalls, you know, the water just shoots right across those buffers and into the lake or the judicial ditch. So that's still an issue. However, we have hundreds and hundreds of field tiles that drain water from fields that the tiles actually go underneath these buffers and directly into the judicial ditch or the North Fork of the Crow River. So what KLA has done is we have set aside $12,000, as I mentioned, to help farmers pay for the construction of these rock inlets. Usually and generally through the Soil and Water Conservation District or the North Fork Crow River District, there are matching grants, or not matching grants, there are grants available to help farmers with these issues, especially with the development and implementation of these rock inlets. So the farmer would pay 75% from that grant that pay 75%. The other 25% has to come from the farmer or the landowner, usually the farmer. And of that 25%, KLA is willing to match whatever the landowner has to pay out of that 25%. So in other words, we're willing to pay half of the 12 or 25%. So I think that's a win-win situation. We still need to have some input from the landowners. So far, a letter went out from the Stearns County Soil and Water District, a joint letter, and the Watershed District in February, and letting all landowners know what this project is all about. And so far, we have one landowner that is interested. So it sounds like a great idea. We could certainly help a lot with cutting down the amount of phosphorus and nitrates entering the river if we can only get more and more people on board to implement or install these rock inlets. Rock inlets take the tile from the field before it gets to the buffer zone, and then basically, I hate to describe it this way, but a rock inlet is like a large grave, and the water flows into this inlet, and then the inlet is filled with usually pea rock. So the water then, as it flows from the field, will drop into the inlet. It'll fill up over time, and then after all the nutrients have pretty much dropped to the bottom of the inlet, then the water, clear water, will flow out underneath the buffer zone and into the lake or the river or judicial ditch. So we need support from landowners along that line, and hopefully we'll get more of that as the time goes on. Question?
Ken, I just want to let you know, we did get an application in for 26 rock inlet service.
Okay, they came in through you guys? Okay, the Soil and Water only has one so far. They must not be aware of that. Okay, we're making headway. All right. How many again?
26.
You have 26 applications or
26 inlets.
26 inlets. Okay, now we went from 1 to 26. Now we're getting someplace. All right. Okay, pass the hat. We might need more money. Another issue we have, and this is something I know the Watershed District is concerned about, we still have landowners in the wintertime who spread manure via manure spreaders too close to judicial ditches or the river. And I believe the fine, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, is $500 for a violation.
It could be, it varies.
Yeah.
Usually it's nothing.
Yeah, it's almost nothing. And for some of the large landowners, I don't want to get too specific, but up the river, $500 to get rid of manure in the wintertime is worth it. So we have the issue that someone mentioned about the PCA and so forth. We have that issue we're going to have to work on, but it's difficult. It's difficult to deal with some of those issues without changes in the laws that affect those issues. So, you know, our work will never be done. Hate to be a pessimist, but we'll continue working as much as we can to resolve some of these issues. So if you have any concerns, our telephone numbers are on the website. Give me or Sue or Riley a call, and we'll follow up on it. Yeah, any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you feel that we are doing enough to support this?
Okay, the question was, do I feel that we are doing enough to support this? I think we are doing everything that we can from our end. Illegally, now we're up against laws that affect, like I mentioned, $500 to dump manure. Well, manure, there's a slight increase in the level of E. coli further up the river. Well, we don't want that coming down here. So some of those issues need to be resolved. I think what we probably could do, it would take legislative action. You know, if there's a $10,000 fine for doing that, maybe some of these larger landowners would say, well, maybe we should do something else. And so I think KLA is doing all we can. I think the North Fork is doing all they can. But I think the next step would really be to get some of these laws changed or strengthened. That's the main thing. And you know how our government works sometimes. It's kind of like pushing a chain uphill. But we'll keep working at it from our end. Okay. Other questions? Yes?
Has anyone quantified the extent of the drain tile problem? How many rock inlets would be needed to address that?
The problem with, that's a very good question. The problem with that is, years ago you could put in field tile without getting a permit. So we have no idea how many tiles enter the ditches in the North Fork of the Crow River, right, Chris? We have no idea. I guess an educated guess could be 500,000, maybe more. We really don't know. Now that permitting is required, then we get a better handle on it. But we really don't know. So our approach is, let's take them one at a time, let's do what we can do, and hopefully solve one problem at a time. Other questions? Yes?
I just wanted to mention that, first of all, this is the largest number of unplanted acres that farmers had in the state's history. So I just want to say, I know there's not many farmers here, but we shouldn't go down on them. Number two, the other thing is that most farmers, majority of them, are as concerned about water quality as anybody. And number three, I think the most important part is like the buffers that were put in, just that people realize, when you put a buffer in, and a lot of us did that, now there's problems with ragweed, there's problems with water hemp, which are weed problems that are occurring. They get ripe and go on to the field, which means you have to do something to control that plant. So it's just all. And the last thing is, there's a lot of people that live in the lake, and I'm one of them. The bottom line is that a lot of people use chemicals to spray weeds. They have the fertilizer company come out, and of course, when there's a heavy rain, I don't need to tell you guys, there's a tremendous runoff. So it's not that just the farmers contribute to a problem. There's a lot of lake owners that will say one thing, and then they'll do another thing of spraying, so they have this nice lawn with a family goes.
That's right.
And so we all got to do our part.
Exactly.
All of us.
Exactly, yeah. I'm not picking on farmers, don't get me wrong. I have a ranch south of the lake. One of my properties goes into a judicial ditch that winds up in the delta. So I'm involved in this too. I mean, our water, we've done what we can. I think I can say none of ours actually gets in there, but yeah, but you know, getting back to your question about, concern about ragweed and so forth, I'd rather have ragweed going into the judicial ditches and coming into Koronis than nitrogen and phosphorus and all these other chemicals. And I don't know if you saw the report by CBS News a couple weeks ago, glyphosate. You've heard lots about glyphosate and Roundup and so forth. General Mills has 4 cereals, breakfast cereals, that have low levels of glyphosate in them. And that means it was processed through General Mills plant or whatever. So some of that stuff is getting into not only our lakes and rivers and streams, it's getting into our stomachs. And so I know that people say, well, it's a small level, big deal. Frankly, I don't want any of that in my system. And not that I have a big system to be proud of, but I have a big system, but not that I'm proud of it. So I'm concerned about that too. And we can't all be organic farmers and so forth. And our approach from KLA is we want to work with the landowners. And the farmers don't want dirty lakes. They go fishing and swimming and so forth too in the lakes and the rivers. But we just want to work with them, do what we can do to help them with this problem, because it's everyone's problem. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, one more thing.
Oh, yep.
Hey, I took a little kayak trip down from the Grove Lake there last summer, and it would be fun to drive or fly a drone down there just to see how many violations there are. But you know, to see dead pigs and cows walking in the river, it's kind of disheartening.
Yeah.
But I know everybody is trying to work together. But. Right.
Yes. Yep. I agree. And the North Fork is doing a good job of identifying those issues. So they've been great to work with. So has Stern Soil and Water. Greg Berg from Stern Soil and Water, whom I'll be meeting a couple of times in the next few weeks, working on these issues. He's very involved. And so we're getting the help that we hope to get to resolve some of these issues. But you know, we stamp out one issue and then we find out that another one is slowly evolving. So again, we need everyone's help, and hopefully we can all do it together. One more question.
Real quickly, last night on the news, Lake Minnetonka, they identified that the problem that's there, and when they was done with this news thing, said that they had asked people not to use the lake for a bathroom. Now, we should also put up signs that people don't use the lake as a bathroom.
Okay, raise your hands if you'll never do that again. Thank you.
I don't see anybody. No. Okay, we have our tabulations back, and these are the people that are new, are either coming back or are new to our board. Susan Schaefer, Rhonda Arnold, Dan Ziegler, Greg May, Jim Wolfslaven, and Jen Maher. Congratulations, guys. Okay, I know there's quite a few of you here that are here for today's main event, and I just have a couple of thoughts from me that I'd like to say to you today. I want you to remember that the main objective of our presentation to all of you today is to educate you as to what the Watershed Petition Project is and how and why we arrived at it to be our best solution for future funding to manage AIS and water quality in Lake Koronis. This was not a flippant decision. It took countless hours of research from the committee and the board to arrive where we're at. So I'm going to ask all of you to keep an open mind with our presentation. You might or might not agree with the solution, but we are asking you to all keep in mind that we have the betterment of Lake Koronis for future generations behind our purpose with this. So on that note, I'm going to ask Steve and Kevin to
Is that on? Okay. Okay, Fighting Starry Stoneward on Lake Koronis. I've had this title up here a little bit different before. And I'm going to give you your daily quiz. Just, we have a one moment of humor. This title used to be To Infinity and Beyond. Okay, Fighting Starry Stoneward to Infinity and Beyond. What's the reference? Thank you. Buzz Lightyear, actually. Thank you. Okay. Let's see if we can get that to play. I think I have to do another clip. Nope. Can you get that to play? There we go. This is 2016. This is what Starry Stoneward looked like on the lake in 2016. And this is what started to get everybody's attention. This is over near Stone Gate. This is what the mechanical puller looks like. So you get a chance to see what it is. This is part of a video that was put together by another organization paid for by Minnesota Lakes and Rivers Advocates and Explore Minnesota. This is all filmed right here in Koronis. Give you an idea of what it is. Starry Stoneward. Mats, we've seen it down to 12 feet all the way to the surface. It forms these dense mats that it appears that fish don't even like. Gives you an idea of what these people had to do to get their boats out into the lake. And we didn't see a lot of other fishermen going through that area. We didn't see a lot of other activities. People had, if they had a jet ski, they had to paddle it out by hand. And that's what we were dealing with in 2015. So here's kind of a before picture. This is another before picture, kind of in that same area, just to give you a sense. What you have is the skeleton underneath all of this yellow that you have on the top is Starry Stoneward. That's what's holding it all up and causing that to float. Starry Stoneward itself actually sinks. If you take a wad of it and put it back in the lake, it will sink. But the other algae floats, so it kind of, the two kind of go together, and the one floats the other, and that doesn't help because that floats it around the lake. These are what's called the bulbils. If you can kind of see, it's a little bit blurry picture. The bulbils are a regrowth structure. The plant that we have in Minnesota is all male, believe it or not. There's no female plants in the United States that anybody knows of or anybody has seen. But the plant can regrow by these bulb bills, stars, if you want to kind of fondly call them that. There's up to like 50 cells in a star. They're mostly carbohydrate, and usually when they're regrowing, they can form one sprout. They have seen up to 3, but usually 2 of them will die off and end up with 1 sprout. So the stars are what is spreading around. So can you imagine an inspector looking at a boat with a white hull trying to find a little star that's stuck on it? I mean, it's tough. And because these are not a vascular plant, like you were talking about glyphosate. So glyphosate works, Roundup works like in a vascular plant where you treat the leaves, and because it's vascular, it'll move itself down and it'll eventually kill the root. In starry stonework, you can't do that because it's not vascular. Every cell is an individual. The plant is very unique in that a cell might be 17 inches long. Great cell for scientific study because the cell is so huge. But if you break the cell, you've killed that plant. But it makes it hard because when you do chemical treatment, you have to treat every cell. You have to hit. You have to have the chemical in contact with every single cell. So there's this combination of a protocol that I'll be talking about of mechanical pulling, but you need to know this little background, why mechanical pulling plays a role in this. Another set of stars, these are actually Steve's rakes. Thanks for using your rake. But you can see this is what you'll pull up sometimes when you get a sampling, and you'll find this a lot of times down in the sediment. And that's unfortunate because the chemicals don't penetrate sediment. So you have the bulbils, which are still in the sediment, and they're staying alive. Let me give you an idea quickly here of what, I think this is the button. There it is. So this goes back to 2015. The orange dots are the heavy infestation. A couple spots around over here. This is over by Sue Ayer's place, if you know where that is, along the way. In 2016, these are DNR maps showing kind of what's happening. It's very concentrated down in here. The various spots around here. 2017. And then this is a map that was put together by Blue Water Science Force. And so this is 2018. But notice that you're going from some dense areas in here over to more of these green areas, which are light growth or no growth is the black, but you got some light growth, some moderate growth. So things are changing, however things are spreading. It's continuing to move around the lake. And that's not really surprising because our work area was down in here. Our work areas weren't all around the lake. We don't have enough money to go all the way around the lake at one time. And we can't legally do that. We already have what's called a variance on our permit to treat greater than 15% of your littoral areas. Koronis has a littoral area. Littoral would be defined as where the plants typically grow. The littoral area is around it's 1,176 feet, or acres of littoral area. We can only treat 15% of that. Well, we actually have a permit, so we can extend beyond that. But now you become a limiting factor. Money becomes a limiting factor. How do you get all the way around the lake? It's expensive. So that gives you an idea of what's happening around the lake with the starry stonewood. So our activities, and this is the protocol. We do a mechanical removal, we verify what we've done, have we done a good job, we do chemical treatment, then we do another verification, did we get what our results been, and then we do a final evaluation of the project. So our protocol, remember, we had to have something that was unique. People have done mechanical removal, people have done chemical treatment, but no one had ever put the two together before. And maybe that sounds goofy, but that's what got us the grant. We had to have a process that was uniquely different than anybody else. Now, why is that important? If you remember, every cell has to be treated with a chemical. So the issue is that if your MAC is too high and you put your chemicals down, the chemicals won't distribute themselves down into get the whole plant, because you have to get every single cell. But if you get in there and mechanically remove the mat and keep it down maybe a foot or so, off the bottom, now you've got a chance for the chemicals to be more effective. So think of the mechanically removed removal as helping those chemicals to be more effective, which gives you the opportunity to use less. You know, you're paying kind of here, but you're paying here, but it's also maybe more healthy for the lake to not use chemicals. I'm not a great liker of chemicals myself, so I mean it fits in well with certainly my strategy personally of where I would want to use chemicals and where I wouldn't. But and in some cases we just can't get the mechanical. Our season. You ever notice that we have winter and then a little bit of summer, then we have more winter, and we don't have this big season that we can be mechanically pulling. So we're always trying to balance, and that's where I use Steve to help me determine when's the time that we can't get the mechanical pulling done and we have to go in with the chemical treatment because we can't do it all. It's trying to find a balance of when's the right time to do work and with mechanical pulling and the right time to do the chemical treatment. But this is what we did in 2016. We estimate we removed about 250,000 pounds of starry stonewort. 2017, at least another 250,000. 2018, last year, 750,000 pounds of starry stonewort. We expanded. The first 2 years where we did small areas, about 11, I think it was like 11 acres probably total. So we were doing just small areas. We have a great relationship with an organic farmer and locally, and we were able to digest and we never take our starry stonewort, the dead cells, out of the watershed. We're not transferring it around. We've done a lot to teach DNR how to manage this stuff. They didn't have a clue. Anyhow, so we're trying to help work together with them as partners. And we try to, we do 2 chemical treatments, and we try to sustain what we did last year. So this year we'll be still chemically treating a lot of the areas that we worked in last year because we want to try and sustain. We don't want to lose ground because we know that if we just stop, the starry stonewort will gradually come back. What we've started to see, and Steve can help attest to that, is we've started to see more natives come back, where we've opened up habitat by getting rid of starry stonewort, and we also started to see fish come back, especially up near shore. And so that's good or very positive. And we use a third-party auditor. We use bed depth and density, the biomass, to try to understand whether we're being successful or not. We're not using percent frequency of occurrence, which is what DNR wants to use, but in our case, that's not a metric, so that's not something we would use. So give you a quick idea of a 1-year cycle in the pilot area. This is the Southeast Bay, right off from Stone Gate. And I'm gonna go kind of quick. So this is what it looks like in May. Green dots is light growth. July, you notice red and yellow are heavier. Red is the heaviest. We have a reference area that was along Highway 55. People recognize this is Highway 55, with the inlet down lower down here. So you can see, so what you want to watch is what's happening between the treatment area and the reference area. So at this time, July 10th, we've not done any treatment. Things have just gone crazy. Oh, but look, the reference area is not too bad. Oh, the reference area is starting to take off, July 31st. Now we did a treatment. And look at the reference area compared to where we've done mechanical pulling and chemicals. We've started to make a difference. And then again in September, the reference area just continues to get full and expand, and the treatment area is done better. So those are, and here's one more slide in October. And it was cold when we were out there, but we were able to do it. But that's just to give you an idea of what's kind of happening, and that's what I was going to be talking about. Before, after. Before, and that's all starry stonewort in the water, after. Give you an idea of what at that time we were using a small trailer, was hauling it away, and we were taking it away from the lake, not out of the watershed. Quick assessments of results. Pulling had immediate relief around dock areas, around shore, around wherever it was. The pulling gave immediate relief. Chemical treatment worked also. We have a chemical that we use that is, if you saw on your newsletter, it's not labeled for anything harmful. And there's no swimming restrictions, that's all in the EPA label, there's no restrictions on that, no issue with watering your lawn with water that's been treated, for animals, everything is fine. But at the same time, understand that we have, because of our partnership with Clemson, I had a student here on Wednesday and I was out on the lake, got soaked twice with the bad weather on the lake, that's always fun, with the rain, and we went out, and he's got several plots along the, kind of the east side of the lake, and his plots are trying different chemicals. We're trying to find a chemical that's cheaper, that works just as well, but is cheaper. So timing of the chemical treatments before the mass is too large is important. I think I've explained why. Bulbils and sediment are not killed. The sediment acts as a protectant for the bulbils. So that kind of forces you to keep coming back and keep working on it. Pulling in one chemical treatment results were about equal to not pulling in 2 chemical treatments. So we've just tried to kind of compare and see what is working. Future plans, 2-pronged approach, we'll continue using that. Mechanical pull, 4 to 5 feet depth. The machine only reaches down so far. It doesn't reach all the way down. The first couple of years we used divers in the water, and they would be out diving and they would be gathering it up. That's what you saw in that picture, gathering it up and kind of feeding it into the equipment. We won't be doing that anymore. That's pretty costly and stuff to do that, so we don't do that. And the chemical treatment, or we'll do chemical treatment in areas where we can't get to the mechanical pulling first. We did try to do some chemical treatment out in deeper areas and didn't find it to be very effective, so we're not going to be able to do that. We still continue to maintain the access as best as we can area, and we have a channel, which probably you've seen, where the buoys are going out into the lake. We've heard really positive reports on that from other boaters and stuff. They say they like that. It makes it easier for them to get into the lake. It actually cuts up less. You used to be able to kind of see the paths where boats would go out through by that access area, and you could see where the motors had chopped up everything. Well, the chopped up stuff goes 2 directions. It either goes out into the lake or it goes back out into another lake. What we will continue to do in the future, just like we're doing this year, is we go through using Blue Water Sciences reports to find the other heavy areas in the lake. Remember, we can't do it all, but we find those heavy areas, and that's where we'll move to. Maintaining what we've done in the years before, but we'll move to other heavy areas so we can get the most value out of what we're doing. Give you an idea, this is a map, and I think you saw this, I think it was in the paper, and it was in your newsletter, to show you the areas. The N areas, that's 1N, means one new. It's the new area because there used to be, there's an old one and there's a one new for this year, and that was just our way of cleverly designating what we're going to be doing. So we're going into any of the N areas. Financial picture. Estimated spend for the first 4 years is $750,000. Didn't cost you guys anything. It's all match dollars. I mean, that's part of the grant. So the grant was for $425,000 through the Legacy Foundation. So that's legacy money. We had to match it. It looked pretty impossible right at the beginning that how are we going to do this? Where are we going to come up with another $425,000? Well, I couldn't spend that kind of money fast enough because the season is only so long. So I couldn't spend it all. I'm sorry, I tried, but it also meant that we had to have a match and stuff to do that. I track all of the time that I put in. Karen, and thanks Karen, and Paul, I see you here, thank you Paul, because we use pontoon boats, we use her boat, and I track whenever I get volunteers. Dick Johnson is my right hand for helping me get out, and thank you Dick for helping get out and do this work. Track all of our time. We're up to probably around $125,000 of value for hours. But remember, $125,000 of our match like that releases $125,000 of free money for us. So we've really been kind of working this as we go. We've got money, to let you know, we also get money for this from Stearns County AIS Committee. We get money for this from the Meeker County AIS Committee. We have never gone to the city or the township to get money to run and do the project and stuff. So, well, we are being recorded. We cheat just a little bit. I'm the chair of the AIS Committee in Stearns County, and Karen's the chair for the AIS Committee in Meeker County. So we do we do know what's going on those committees. So we're out beating the bush, trying to get grants, to get matched. We have other counties, we have other lake associations that have been willing to contribute up to like $13,000 of donations just to act as match for us to do it. And thanks to Michelle Fishbach and Jeff Howe, we were able to get a $200,000 appropriation that was a one-time appropriation to Koronis. So this gives you an idea, the $200,000 legislative grant I just mentioned, $100,000 in local in-kind match, $100,000 in local cash match. I mean, your contributions to KLA have helped along in this area. And it's about $18,000 local cash match from other counties and lake associations. So we continue to try and find new things. We've looked at LCCMR, we've looked at other things that would help the project go forward and be matched. There's always with grants, there's conditions of doing various things. There's always time spent with getting the grant, and then there's time spent reporting out where you spent the money. But it's the conditions and stuff that always kind of get you. So what we look at is we estimate that $170,000 per year would be needed for sustainability. We had that number reviewed by an engineering company, and they came back and they said that's a pretty solid number for what you're going to need in the future. And that's a number that's going to be important to the next part of the presentation. So that's kind of where we are. And the problem is the funds that we've got are going to be used up in 2020. The legacy funds are gone. Excuse me, that was a one-time deal. The appropriation, that will be gone after 2020. That was that $200,000. Stearns County AIS funds, that will still be out there. That's part of a $10 million grant that the legislature gave to the counties, and it's spread around all of the state. To the counties, $10 million. Stearns County gets $244,000. Stearns County has a process of how that money gets distributed. You have to apply for that grant, and then you have to show paperwork to show how you use the grant. So there'll be money that still be available for that. But it also, that money has to cover everybody in the county. And so Meeker County gets a little bit less than that, and the same thing happens there. There's conditions, it has to spread out. So it's not like KLA, Koronis Lake gets $244,000. You get a little piece. And we've got to be careful. You always have to kind of figure out, well, what's worthwhile? The Watershed gets $33,000 of that money towards the inspection program in the Watershed. We get an additional $10,000 for the project. That's what I've submitted for the last so many years. So at the end of the project, we'll have gotten $40,000 of that money towards the project. And I think it'll be roughly about, maybe $20,000-$25,000 towards the project from Meeker County. Give you an idea. So that explains Stearns and Meeker. DNR grants, okay, a small amount may be possible. I have been able to get some grants from DNR towards Starry Stone work in the past. 2 years ago was the last time I got a grant from them, and it was $6,000. And because we do and did more treatment than was legally allowed, we had a variance, they required much more monitoring of the chemical applications and monitoring of what we were doing. They require what's called a point intercept survey, where you go around the whole lake. What's it take you to do that, Steve? About 3 days, 2.5 to 3 days to do that. So Steve comes on the lake, and we go around, and and records all of the data that all goes to DNR. And because they required more monitoring, that grant was available. This year, there was no grant. So that comes out of our dollars on trying to do that, but it's still a requirement. But that's where the money came from, and there was no more. Now, there was an increase, if you just read it in the Paintsville Press, there was an increase in a surcharge for boat licenses, roughly $5.60 increase or something. So the idea was that I understand it, and I got this kind of direct from the horse, once removed from the horse's mouth, if I can refer to DNR as the horse's mouth, once removed. So what DNR has told Lakes and Rivers Advocates, who we're members of, and Jeb Forrester was here a couple years ago and gave a talk, that's Lakes and Rivers Advocates. What he was told is that that money is expected to generate probably about $450,000, I think, a year. Now that $450,000, by the way, last I looked, we had something over 10,000 lakes. That $450,000 is to help AIS on all of those lakes. So let's divide that out. I think we figured out, I think I was doing this math, and it's like $90 a lake. So that might be what we get, is $90 a lake. Now that's a little bit tongue in cheek. The reality is that that money will go, because not all lakes are going to do AIS programs, and so that money is going to be divided out differently. But to let you know, that is not necessarily the answer and going to solve our problem to manage it. So township and city grants not used for projects. So, but why do we care about the lake? And I kind of put this down, and I was talking with Steve. You know, why is this important to us? You know, and I'm going to try not to get emotional. Sorry, Paul. You and I are the same, because I've seen Paul do the same thing. Why is this important to us? You know, everybody's got to think, what's the deal with the lake? Why do you care about the lake? What is it? You know, some of us, I mean, my parents bought a place in 42. My kids love the lake. My grandkids love the lake. It's where memories are made. It's part of us. You know, and so just think about that. Why is this important that we do something for the lake? Can we just let it go? You know, and we took it on, and several of us, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional on you. I was embarrassed myself, but you know, when you start to think about why does it mean anything to us at all? It's just a stupid lake. You know, some people pee in it. I'm sorry. You know, it's us. It's what we're about. It's new memories are made. Old memories are there. Is it financially important to us? Some people. You know, some people might look at it as an investment. I'm on this lake. You know, this is an investment to me. And I don't think there's a bunch of people, I'm looking at a bunch of my neighbors, it's not an investment to them. You know, is it important though that it keeps its value? Sure it is. Absolutely. But it's not like you're going to make money off of it in the end. But it's important. It's important that it's our job to take care of the lake. Paul wrote a really great article not that long ago that was in the St. Cloud paper about responsibility. Thanks for putting that out, Paul. I mean, it becomes a responsibility. It's a gathering place, and we just plain love the lake. So how do we financially sustain the management activity? You know, and that's kind of what this is all about. And so with that, see if it'll play.
In 2015, starry stonework was discovered in Lake Koronis, unfortunately the first lake in Minnesota to have it. And so we're very fortunate that we've had members, neighbors, and members of the KLA board work endless hours during the first phase of this project, which we're calling the pilot phase. That's from 2015 till now. And during that time, we figured out how the plant works, the biology of the plant. We partnered with many different state agencies and have come up with a management plan to keep starry stonewort at bay. Unfortunately, we don't think, or today's collective science doesn't believe we can eradicate starry stonewort, but at least we have a plan to sort of keep it manageable. The pilot phase has been funded by grant money. Some of that grant money has come from philanthropic dollars and some from government funds. About $750,000 of grant money has been used to basically take us through this pilot phase. So, unfortunately, we're now coming into a new phase, which we're calling the operational phase, where we know what to do, but unfortunately, again, we have to keep doing this for at least forever, as far as we know. The cost of treating starry stonewort in Lake Koronis is about $170,000 per year. And that money goes to fund a environmentally friendly algicide that we apply, plus a mechanical harvester that pulls the starry stonewort. It's that combination of that program that we use to go to hot spots where starry stonewort is growing to treat it, and that's the sort of program that we're looking at doing. This new group has figured out, okay, how do we go forward? And specifically, how do we fund the operational phase of this project? We've been working since last fall, researching all of our options. We've looked at philanthropy. We don't think that we'd have to have tens of millions of dollars of philanthropy to do that. If somebody wants to write a check, we'd be happy to have that. And we've looked at grants, and again, the grants we've sort of tapped out because that was really given to figure out how this could work on behalf of other lakes and other members of our state. So, unfortunately, the only way forward is through taxes. And there's two options for taxes. There's one called the Lake Improvement District and one called a Watershed Petition project. We strongly, unanimously have chosen the Watershed Petition project as our method for funding the operational phase of our project. This is state law that is established, and how it works is that we partner with the North Fork of the Crow River Watershed District, who would actually be our fiscal agent in doing this, and the Koronis Lake Association would oversee the project. That is, let me explain to you a little bit more how the WPP or the Watershed Petition Project works. Watershed Petition Project is a part of a state statute where we would utilize the existing taxing authority. We have that through the North Fork of the Crow River, which Lake Koronis is a part of. So we've been in close consultation with their management and with their board, notifying them that this is something we'd like to do. So how does it work? And practically, I could spend a lot of time just going through the details, but we first had to define the boundary of the project, and the boundaries would be, we call it Tier 1, all people, all residents that own lakeshore immediately on the shores of Lake Koronis. And there's about 535 of us that own property there. What we need for the petition to work is that we actually need to secure signatures from a minimum of 25% of those 535 residents. And so we've started a campaign that we're just launching right now, and we'll call it June 1st, to try to secure those signatures by the end of this summer. A couple key important dates. We're utilizing and bringing back the neighborhood captains again that have been used historically to be able to, so that you can talk to your neighbor directly about this and with any questions that you have. They'll be coming to you within the next month or so, and we'll get to notify you about this video and with some written material just to educate you about the project. The next key date is July 13th, when we have the KLA annual meeting. That won't be at Regional Park this year, but it will be at the high school in the auditorium, so in case of rain, we're all comfortable. We encourage any and all of you to please come to that meeting where we can have Q&A and questions and really understand this project. We will have the petitions available at that meeting for your signature, and then after that meeting, the captains will be going back into the neighborhoods to try to get signatures from you and your family members. We hope to have all the signatures collected by the end of the summer, by Labor Day. And then the petition with all the signatures would be turned over to the North Fork of the Crow River, and then they would look and vet it with engineering and with sort of the auditors and all, and then figure out a way and a fair way to basically put that into our property taxes that would be then become operational for the 2021 tax year. They use a formula. It's all based on the property value of each of us that we own on the lake. So that's briefly how the Watershed Petition project works, and that's the phase that we're in. Why is this important? You know, as I said at the outset, Lake Koronis is my most special place for me anywhere in the world. And one, we have a large financial investment, and without doing anything here, without funding this, our investment is going to deteriorate from where it is today. So pocketbook is one reason. As importantly, I call it livelihood. We enjoy this lake, we fish, we swim, we wakeboard, we tube, all those things. And that's, you know, that doesn't have a value, and priceless, as people say. And unfortunately, places in Michigan that have not treated starry stonework, have had it longer than us, have become really unusable. The mat that's formed without treatment overtakes the lake, so you can't swim, you can't fish. It destroys the native plant life and fish, and so it would really render almost a desert, a dead lake, if we didn't do this. So we think this petition is the fairest way to do it. It allocates costs based on people's property. We think it's the most economical. If each of you went out and had to pay someone to do the cutting or the chemical treatment, it would cost a lot more than all of us doing this collectively. So we're really asking for your help. We're asking for your support of this project, ultimately to sign the petition that will be coming forward to you this summer. And you know, we don't expect everybody's going to agree with this. We hope to be respectful, we hope to be transparent, and we hope to have a lot of good conversation. One of the really fun things for me in this little goofy food bowl Koronis cafe we've had the last couple of years, I've met more people on the lake than I have in my 61 years of living on it. And everybody I like. And so this is an opportunity for us to build community, to get to know each other, and to do something for all of us and for our grandkids and for future generations to enjoy Lake Koronis like we have. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. It's a little awkward to see yourself there, but we did this, and I think the neighborhood captains, because they really asked for, as they go out in the neighborhood, a consistent message that could be shared. And we're using, you know, for some of us older, social media is the way to do that. We appreciate the turnout today, but we probably have, you know, maybe 25% of all lake owners. So what about the other 75? We want everybody to know about this. That's the first part of this. So whether you agree or disagree, we wanted a consistent message, and so we will distribute this to others, and so I'm not just trying to, what's that? It's on the website as well, so, yeah.
Okay, questions on this?
Yeah.
Am I in order for that?
Yeah, I'll give you, let me get through a couple of clarifications and then we're going to have questions. So, what do we got going here? Yeah, so as Kevin said, I'm going to try to get through this rather briefly. We just did not arbitrarily go out and say we're going to do this. And I want to clarify in Kevin's deal, that in-kind deal, he's not getting paid for this. This is volunteer work of hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of hours. Now, he asked me to help with this part of it. But I, like many of you, been at this place, on this lake and sort of monitoring starry stone work. I've been amazed at, he's not only a state leader, but he's a national and kind of a global leader on this through what he's done. So we are really fortunate to have all of the time and dedication and an expert in our midst. So thank you, Kevin, from all of us. So we've looked at nobody wants to pay more in their taxes. We know that. We've looked at grants. Just to clarify, the grants really we were kind of the canary in the mine shaft. We're the test case. We got the money from the state and others to figure out what to do. We've done a damn good job of kind of figuring out what to do. Doesn't make it go away. But that's been accomplished. The grants have kind of dried up. Okay, so we pursued that. So that's not going to give us $170,000 a year. Philanthropy, I say in the deal, we've done with our foundation, we try to get raise an endowment, and you get money on the endowment to pay $170,000. That's how you need millions of dollars to do that over time. And we will use some philanthropic dollars, but that's not going to be sufficient. We looked at the Lake Improvement District. We talked to Stearns County Water and Sewer, we talked to Chris and others. The problem with that is that a couple of them. One, why create a new taxing authority, which is what a Lake Improvement District would be? We already have a taxing authority in the form of the North Fork of the Crow River, one of many watersheds that have that capability already. The other problem that we have on Lake Koronis is we span 2 counties. So having just the bureaucracy of creating a Lake Improvement District across 2 counties is very problematic. So we really did our research. We talked to state agencies, all of them. We've talked to other lakes that have done this. Tom, are you here with Pierce Lake? They're kind of in our guinea pig. They're out ahead of us here in terms of figuring that their watershed petition just was submitted to the North Fork of the Crow River. So this is a state law. And Chris, how long has this been in place, this statute? Or Kevin, I know it's 20 years or something like that. Long time it's been there. Historically, it's been used more for farming, for ag projects, where petitions to do ditches and things. But you know what? As aquatic invasive species, we're going to be on the front end of this. Many, many lakes are going to be trying to do this very same thing across the state of Minnesota because it's the best way to proceed. So here's the committee that has been working on this since last fall. Again, thanks to everybody. Chris has sort of been auxiliary member and really helped us kind of network with other watershed districts and a really key partner as we move forward. So quickly, and then we'll get to questions. I don't want to get into too much of the details, but this you have in your material is sort of how the WPP works. So color-coded, the committee that you just saw kind of does the blue stuff. The North Fork of the Crow River Chris and his staff does the orange stuff, and then the engineering firm later, if this goes to that, will do the green stuff. Right now, we're in the very bottom box, so since last fall, we've done everything on the left side. Now we're obtaining Watershed project petition signatures today. Again, we'll try to get those signatures and get them by the end of the summer, and then we turn them over to the North Fork of the Crow River. And that's when they really go into the details to look to make sure that the budget's right. They figure out how the fair allocation of the cost of that $170,000 a year works. And then ultimately it comes down to the vote of the people on the board. You're all probably wondering, key question, so what is this going to cost me? Okay, this is an estimate, and who ultimately figures this out are the engineers. And everybody that goes through this to figure out what the total cost of this thing is and how to allocate that across everybody. We think we're pretty close on this. That the current average annual property tax, if you look at your statements, if you have a place in Lake Koronis, is approximately 1% of the value of the property. For an example, average place, and we just use $300,000, you're paying about $3,000 per year in property taxes. Half in May, half in October. So what is the impact of the Watershed petition project? We estimate that it's going to be 1/10 of 1%. Okay? So on that $300,000 property, that's going to be about $300 more per year that you would pay towards the $170,000 annual cost to do all the treatment that Kevin talked about to keep Starry Stone and other things manageable for us so we can continue to use the lake like we have. Again, $500,000, would be $500 a year, or obviously just how much per month. So key steps for approval would be first to obtain the signatures. And there's, I think, about 535 or close to that, Karen. So obviously 25%, 134 signatures is what we need at minimum to do this. We've learned from other watersheds that it's better to get some more than that, to have a little headspace, and I'll get a reason in a minute. So our goal is to get 30%, or about 160 signatures here in the next a few weeks by the end of the summer before seasonal residents kind of go back and it's harder to get them. So signatures, important part. These are not just, you just don't sign your name on these and turn it in if you support it. They're a kind of a legal binding signature, much like you're selling your property. So if you're a joint tenant, husband and wife for instance, you need signatures from both parties. If it's siblings, tenants in common, you need 5 siblings on it. You need signatures from all 5 siblings for it to be a legitimate petition. Trusts. Anybody that's legally authorized on the trust as trustees would need to sign. Business or nonprofit would be signatures required from individuals authorized to act on behalf of the entity. LLC, a lot of that is typically an officer. So we've been working with an attorney who helped draft the petition and has helped giving us this information. So other watersheds, Clearwater I know, they went out with first petitions and they didn't have enough signatures, so they had to go back and redo all their petitions once again. A lot of work, so we want to try to do it right the first time. So we have petitions today. I think some of you have them already from your neighborhood captains, but we have plenty here for you to pick up and sign or bring back to your spouse to sign and turn in. So you get the petitions, you get the 25% minimum. We submit them to the North Fork of the Crow River, to Chris and team. Then they actually hire an engineer. And an engineering firm that does sort of validates all of the assumptions, the costs, and then they'll actually publish an engineering report, public information that sort of substantiates everything. And then there's appraisers, what's the other term for that? Viewers that are actually are hired as well that will go and sort of validate that the petitions are legitimate. You, if you sign that petition, truly live where you do, and then they work again with entities to actually use this formula to figure out how to allocate the costs across all property owners. The next step would be then for the North Fork, if you got the engineering reports approved and the reviewers reports approved, as in peers, this is what Chris said earlier, they're at that point where they've submitted those reports to Bowser, which is the Soil and Watershed Conservation Districts in the state, plus DNR to approve those. So when they approve that, would go to this next step, where we have Bob and John, I think, is that, yeah, here as members of, elected members of the North Fork Program Watershed District. They would have a hearing, and this is sometime in the future, where again, the public reports, the engineering reports, the allocation of all that would be detailed and would be provided to you as the public for your information and to receive any feedback. The last step is then the members of that board vote to approve the petition. There are 5 members on the board, and it's a simple majority to pass. So you would need 3 of those 5 votes for the petition to be validated. And then it would start. We have allocated the funds and grants that we've had. It's good we did this. We thought we'd try to do it this year. We were biting off more than we could chew. So we have enough money to do the treatment to keep Starry Stoneware at bay through 2020. The money's gone after that. So that's why if this is approved, it needs to be approved by September 15th of 2020, and then it would become part of your property taxes starting in 2021. Well, that's the whole process. I guess I already said that. So, Q&A, all ready, sir. So, I guess somebody's going to help here with a microphone so everybody can hear what you have to say. And obviously, we'll try to go, we want to go longer. It always takes longer than we think. So we can hear from you. Your questions and comments, please kind of keep this to 3 minutes. We want to try to hear from as many people as we can. Sue, I think you're going to kind of be a timekeeper here. And truly be respectful. And we just thank, we know that everybody's not going to agree with this, I said in the video, but we want to hear from everybody. And if we don't get all your questions, we want to collect them and we'll come back and talk to you sort of later as well, okay? So you go ahead. You were the first one. Let's give this gentleman a microphone. Who's got Dick? Thank you.
If you could introduce
If you can introduce yourself so that we have it, so that, I mean, if there's follow-up and stuff that we need to do, we'll try to do that. So Ken is going to take some notes, and we're recording it here on a video, and that's why it's important that we have the mic so that if we need to follow up with you, we can.
Okay, there's a lot of people here I don't know. My name's Dave Inglesby. I've been on the lake since '94. I've seen a lot of changes in the lake in that period of time, and everybody has emotional attachments to the lake. That's not, as far as I'm concerned, a valid part of the discussion. The discussion here is whether what you're doing is effective or not, and the cost of that, and why 25% of any group can assess the rest of these people taxes. I think the Lake Association in this instance is becoming a taxing authority through your actions, whether you mean to do that or not. It says 25% of affected property owners. Well, if you're going through the Watershed district, is not that tax spread across the entire Watershed district? Well, then why is the Watershed district the taxing authority? If only the lake owners are paying the taxes, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of taxes because it never stays the same. You want $175,000 the first year, 250 a second, it's gonna go up every year. Government never gets less expensive.
Chris, can you answer a couple of those questions and we'll get you a mic?
That's the way the watershed districts were set up by state statute, that they can handle projects like these. And the 25, 26% is also backed in state statute. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for the public to voice their concerns during this process. But up to, I mean, we don't, the district doesn't even have a valid petition yet. You know, that's what you're in right now. It's still a citizen's petition that you're working on the signatures to present to the board. So everything up to this point, though, it is in state statute of what we can do as a district.
So the other question you asked, and thanks, I'm kind of taking what you asked and turning it into a question, because this is, as a question and answer, this is where you get your answers done. So the other question is it working? And that was the slides and stuff that I tried to show you, but that's kind of why I have the third-party auditor here to, I mean, we can ask Steve to talk and explain what his feelings are from what he's seen. Because Steve does this all over the state of Minnesota, looking and evaluating the stuff done. I mean, our consultant on this is Dr. John Rogers out of Clemson, probably one of the two nationwide experts in this area. And he, you know, he reviews this, he gets copied on all of our reports. He'll be the one that will probably end up doing our final evaluation. I've already talked to him about that. And so far, I mean, all I can tell you is that he's very pleased with what we're doing with our deal. But I don't know, Steve, would you like to, can we get you to, that's what we got you here for. So we just need here.
Well, I'm not disputing any of your studies. Okay.
So you feel that by chemically treating the lake repeatedly is going to be beneficial for the lake? It doesn't also kill carrot and native plants and provide opportunity for starry stonewort to be thicker. And the pictures you took initially that showed Lake Koronis, I was the one who took the sample out of the lake, and about 75% of that vegetation was native plants. So how many more native plants are we going to kill? How long are we going to do this? 30, 40, 50 years? And I'm a fisherman, and every time you put copper sulfate in the lake, what effect does copper sulfate have on fish and the bottom of the food structure? We quit using it in all our walleye ponds. It made the ponds sterile. So
what, give me the question.
Well, the question is, do you really think this is going to work long term? So far, all you're able to do is knock it back. And what other detrimental things does it do to the lake?
Those are great questions. And here's a quick overview. Copper sulfate is an algicide and it's very short-lived in the lake. The copper is toxic to algae. So when we put in copper sulfate, the copper dissociates from the sulfate and you have free copper. However, copper only lasts free in that state for a few hours, maybe a few minutes to a few hours. It then precipitates with copper carbonate and falls to the bottom and is inert from there on. So it's and these algae are susceptible. So you're going to get some collateral impacts as well. However, we're also very careful where we're using the copper, the starry stonewort is dominant. And it's almost 100% starry stonewort. Maybe there's going to be some Cara in there. And that will be a factor to consider down the road. And it's also something we've considered to this point. So copper by itself, long term, has shown to be very inert and very non-toxic. So in the long run, starry stonewort, because it's so new in this lake, as AIS species go, some of them will do very well in lakes, and in other lakes, a new introduction, the starry stonewort or the AIS doesn't do very well at all. It's pretty apparent that starry stonewort is doing very well in Koronis, so it's going to be something that's going to be needed to probably be fairly persistent in that approach. Also, just a quick point on programs around the country. Lake Koronis right now is leading really a nationwide effort and long-term control for starry stonework. There isn't any other lake in the country that's taking a systematic approach, bringing in like a Dr. Rogers for consulting and going through this whole regime of looking at approaches. There's no place else in the country. In fact, there's been a couple published papers in the literature, in journals that are also expressing the results here, and all that feedback has been significant.
Did that kind of get to you?
You know, it does and it doesn't. I don't know.
No, you do need a microphone so we can get it.
He talks about the copper that goes to the bottom of the lake, it stays there forever. And we haven't done any studies on our walleye ponds, but we do know that a lot of them are not productive anymore. So I don't think anybody's really studied that. So you're all for continuing to dump copper into Lake Koronis and just take that chance that the bottom of the food chain may be affected, that it might.
Well, actually, that's another good point. Copper's been used for over 100 years for controlling algae in a variety of systems. If you use copper above the required or above the permitted levels, you will get a copper buildup in the sediments, and that'll have some impact on aquatic plant growth. But for the invertebrates and other things that live there, because the copper precipitate is so inert, has very little impact. Copper is not a new algicide, it's new in terms of this approach using it for starry stoneworm. So we do have a pretty good track record of what copper can do.
And I think that's part of one of our partnerships with DNR. We have a lake vegetation management plan that we work with DNR, and they're doing some of the monitoring of the other things. Who's we?
I work for the DNR Fisheries Advisor, so we'll be doing a survey again this summer.
Are you?
I'm a low-life worker. I was working for 40 years, Barry Flanders.
You're Barry Flanders.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I have concerns about chemicals in our lakes. And mechanical harvesting, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not opposed to, although I do think it's present.
Are you here representing DNR?
No, I'm not. I'm representing myself, who's lived on this lake forever.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Yeah, and I think we're taking more of an emotional venture at this than a scientific one. And I think if we really want to spend our money wisely, we should come up with a better plan to eliminate it and not just cut the hair.
What is that plan?
That plan isn't there, but money for research to do that, and not use Lake Koronis as a test plot.
So one of the decisions that's made. Right, and yeah. Before we pick this chemical, what Jeff is reminding me, before we pick the chemical that we do use, he went through what's called an algae challenge test to try a whole bunch of different ideas, things, including hydrogen peroxide, which is another chemical that's out there to do that. And the one that we end up using is the one that was selected through that process. Sorry, lost my train of thought is where I was going. So,
I guess that my only statement is I'm opposed to continuous use of copper. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
I have another study here, and you probably got the same thing. The DNR has also done studies on this. And when you stir up starry stonewort, as you know, it moves. And your mechanical harvesting is stirring up starry stonewort. It's moved around the lake, as you can see in these studies. It's in areas it wasn't in before. It was discovered it was in the down by 5 Mile Bridge. It since has moved around the lake in areas it did not occur in before. Mechanical harvesting has stirred that up. Now, you've done one thing to try to avoid that, and that's put boat channeling. But you've come back and done just the opposite with the mechanical harvesting. I understand it makes the lake shore look nicer, and by putting the chemical in there, you kill the starry stonewort to some extent, but it comes back. The native plants that you're killing do not come back. In fact, the studies show that the native plants do not recover as well as starry stonewort. So you've created vacancy. Starry stonewort actually occupies that vacancy that causes the movement. And as a lakeshore owner, I am opposed to this, and I'm also president of the Paintsville Sportsman's Club. We've been talking about this for a while. We took a vote on this as a club, And the people that present at that meeting were 100% opposed to your approach to this.
We need to move on to other questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's good.
Yeah, so my name is Kevin Carroll. I own 2 adjacent cabins on the North Shore, the first of which I bought in 1981. I've got 2 kind of technical questions about the petition process. One of the slides said that you need signatures from 25% of the property owners, but at the risk of hair splitting, does that mean you need all of the necessary signatures for 25% of the properties that are included within the area? Or do you need 25% of the signatures of the actual owners? Because if you've got 500 properties, you may have 1,000 or 2,000 owners. So do you need 25% of the signatures for 25% of the properties?
The law and the statute said or. So it's either one. Either 25% of the 535 or 25% of all the people that would be on the petition.
So the second question is, I'm not sure how the boundary was determined. For example, one of my properties is, it's behind the lake road. The lake road is between my cabin and the lake. So are properties like that included in the 535?
Yeah, so this was the part of the process where people that filed the petition, in this case KLA, determined the boundaries of the petition. And sir, it got to your question around could we have done the entire watershed? We could have, but we determined that we would do tier 1 for those that have riparian ownership right on the shores of Lake Koronis. And the logic behind that was that group has the most to gain and lose by this whole thing. So the petition that we're forwarding is that group. Just to be clear, the statute says you could go all the way, the whole watershed. You could go to Rice Lake and make it 25% of that whole thing. We're doing it for immediately along Lake Koronis. Yep.
Is there a map or list that shows which properties are included?
Yeah. Jeff has done a great. Jeff, that's public information. I mean, he's been able to grab it off the county websites. He's asking for a map in terms of what properties these are. Okay, we can post them on the website here so we can provide that.
Thank you. Good question.
Well, the way we determine...
You're going to get the mic Get the mic, Jeff.
In order to establish a list of people that would be affected, we asked the county for a list of the riparian owners, and they responded by giving us directions on how to use their GIS website that they have available, and said that we should recommend it we use within 100 feet of the lake itself. And so I actually did this process, went to the GIS website, identified Lake Koronis, said all the properties within 100 feet. And so that's the specific thing that would make the property eligible or not. If you were across the road, you might still be included, but if you're more than 100 feet away from the lake, you wouldn't be. And so as I looked along the shore, and I live over kind of by Veterans Park, Vance Beach, there's some of my neighbors I was surprised to see not there, because actually their property is kind of up the hill from Vance, if you know what I mean, and they don't have property right down on the lake. So it, in a way, seems a little arbitrary, but again, that's the most affected group of people that the farther away you are from the lake, the less the property values will be affected. And I have to say, I'd like to just, my take on the process at the Watershed District is it takes 25% of the property owners to file a petition, not to change your taxes, but the Watershed District does that work. They determine the taxes, and this just gets our petition filed. And the petition then is followed by two simple questions. How much does it cost, and what's the benefit? That's the whole point of the petition, is to establish that there's a greater benefit than there is a cost. And the engineer's report establishes the cost, and the viewers and assessors that Steve talked about, their job is to determine how much those people that within 100 feet of the lake will be affected by the problem of starry stonework and how much they'll realize in a benefit if it's addressed. And that's how that gets done. So that's a long answer, but it's 100, if you're within 100 feet of property views.
Jeff, Chris had a comment on that, good question.
Part of the process is you appoint an engineer and an appraiser or a team of appraisers. So it'd be 3 disinterested people that will go out and view this project area, and they will make the ultimate decision whether or not somebody benefits from this project or not. So they're the ones who kind of make that determination. So they take out the local, whatever, I mean, they're disinterested people that make the decision.
Well, first of all, I'll use the mic if you want.
Please.
First of all, I bought the lake home. I did not buy the lake. Number 2, I am as concerned about the lake as anyone. But economically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be telling every future lake owner that there's going to be a significant property tax increase on them. My property taxes went up this year, and now we're going to have another tax. And it's not going to help economically sell lake homes. My neighbor just moved in, and he indicated if he had known this, he would have not bought this place on Lake Koronis. He came from Sartell. He's a state trooper. He can't be here today, but he is not in support of this at this point. More importantly, my question is this. When you agitate, I'm a farmer, ragweed, and it was basically talked about as a kind of a joke. When that ragweed gets ripe, it blows seeds. When those seeds get blown on the farmer's land, we have to do something to eradicate it, or it will take out our crop. And we cannot come and ask for public funding. We have to do that on our own. So the bottom line is you're agitating, as this individual said, and as you're agitated, it's continuing to be put around the entire lake. And there is no scientific proof at this point that what you're going to be doing with this money is going to resolve the problem. And my last question is economics.
That wasn't a question. Give me the question.
The question was, when you agitate, are you agitating this, and there is no, you can't answer it because nobody can, is it not going all around the lake once you agitate it and stir it up? And that's my question, and then you can answer that when I'm done. And the second thing is economically. We are now in a position that those of us who are on the lake, 500 people, why does the city not help? How many people that go on the lake go into the city, buy gas, buy food, and it should not be just something that should be done by the lake owners. We don't own a lake, and if you shut some of these public accesses, if you want us to contribute, then let's shut down the lake and make it a private lake, but also let the businesses contribute something, because the last question is you have no assurance that what you're imposing on as this watershed district, that it's not going to go up in the future, and that's what's going to happen. If you can answer that it's not going to go up, that it's going to be guaranteed, then let's hear it now.
So part of the process that's written out in the statute is that there is a review that goes forward. And I would have to defer to Chris to give us an answer of how frequently you go through a review, because what we've seen over on Clearwater Lake in Wright County is they have to be very mindful that they don't have in the pot of monies, that they don't build up too much. Then they have to make some adjustments. And so they'll adjust down and stuff. And so they're trying to keep to a budget. Chris, do you have can we get Chris again? What's that?
It's not a perpetual assessment, as in there's a specific time frame.
Here, take the mic so that people can hear.
The way these projects are set up, it's not a perpetual assessment. So there is a time frame, and that comes from the engineer's report. And after that, or you're approaching the end of that time frame for the project, then you'll be reassessed where you're at, and if it needs, then again. it would be.
I'm not sure if he's catching that there's another conversation that he's having.
So
I just want to be sure he catches the answer, because you
the
need to
petition doesn't go on forever.
Right.
It'll be a 7 or 10 year sort of deal. Actually, they're already working, I don't know if you picked it up, but we don't want this to go up every year. Kevin's working on chemicals, lower cost chemicals, to actually try to reduce the annual costs over time as well. And we're hopeful, can't guarantee that.
And I think to try to answer a little bit of your other question, the first couple of years when we were working on the pilot, of where I showed you a picture, we had the whole area surrounded by nets where we were working, because we were concerned with the same question you had about, is mechanical pulling, we're not cutting, we're pulling, but now there is breakage with pulling. We were concerned about that were we causing additional spread. And after looking at it for a couple of years, and after looking at it last year when we did not use the nets, we did not feel that we were. We didn't feel that our spreading, if we were doing any, was any worse than boats going from one side of the lake to the others. And the same thing was going through the channel. From what we saw on the channel, which was cutting it up even worse and was spreading it out just throughout the lake. I mean, you're exactly right though. I can't demonstrate that to you by the sheer fact that the charts show that it's spread further around the lake does not indicate that it's coming from us. Steve has a comment too.
This is Dave. Just a quick thing to add to that. I had the same question. Is mechanical harvesting spreading? Is because starry stormwater seems to be spreading around Koronis yet. However, I've talked to University of Minnesota researchers who are doing research on starry stormwater around the Midwest. They find that starry stormwater will spread through a lake without any type of treatment or management at all. It'll do it naturally. And in fact, they're also finding that starry stormwater will go in and actually be able to displace some of our native plants, including Cara. So I think managing starry stormwater as best as we can is ultimately probably a pretty good idea.
Mr. Flanders, another Mr. Flanders.
Pat Flanders, I'm a huge advocate of mechanical harvesting. When you have thistles growing in your yard or your field, and if you cut them before they go to seed, you're not creating agitation. If your thistles are burst open and you're cutting them, you will create agitation and spreading the seed. Is it not correct that the Lake Association is very aware of that, and they quit harvesting when starry stormwater is going to seed?
It was starry stone. I mean, it's a really actually good analogy, but starry stormwater doesn't really have a seed. It's got the bulbil, which is a way that it will regrow, but so will a full cell. And so there's not really a seed because there's not sexual reproduction because of the fact that there's no females. So it's not a seed structure. We're actually worried about it all the time. I mean, we watch for, how much is it, what are we creating? We watch it. So, but the analogy could be correct if there were females.
Is it not correct that when it hits a certain level of ripeness, you quit the harvesting? That was my understanding, that is what is being done. No?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Because there is no, the plant itself will regrow. Universities had not real great luck with trying to regrow from a single cell, but they will from a bulb. And that's kind of a concern that we're very mindful of that. And it's difficult to get a net that's small enough to try to contain the bulbils. The bulbils can be really, really tiny.
Or was Mike? 3 minutes, Paul.
Thank you. Paul Buckby, lifelong resident of Lake Koronis, probably the biggest taxpayer on Lake Koronis. I've talked to a lot of my neighbors, some are here, and I appreciate the comments of my friends. Barry and Dave and Joe. And I share your concerns as well. And for me, it's always a big debate. The financial aspect always enters in first, and then all of the other aspects. You know, why only 25% signatures? Why isn't a larger population sharing in the cost of these? Why is it that the Lake Association always is the ones that have to step forward, step up to the plate to protect this lake that's a public lake? Why is it that we have very little, if any, authority over what happens on our lake? You know, all of these issues, but always it comes back down to the property owners on Lake Koronis. And Joe, we can talk about the emotional aspects. It obviously is a very emotional thing for all of us. We love Lake Koronis. And it shows by virtue of the fact that we go way above the norm. We go way above any standard to try to protect and improve our lake, even when agencies who are assigned to do that don't necessarily do that. So I wrestle with those same questions all of the time. This morning I was thinking about this, and you know, the thought came through my mind, sorry, Kevin, you know. But you know, we've always heard the term, you know, we know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. You know, the price certainly is going to be there. It's probably going to be $6,000 to $8,000 a year for me. But what are our alternatives? I can guarantee you, if you want your property taxes to go down, don't sign a petition. Your property taxes will go down. Your property values will go down, and that brings your property taxes down. That's a guarantee. But I think all of us know that we'd rather have a beautiful lake, and once again, we probably need to step up to the plate, pay what's necessary to try to protect and improve our lake. And it's a tough decision, but I got to sign a petition. You know, it's something that I need to do not only because it's my business and my livelihood, but it's my spirituality. Lake Koronis is a great place.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. I mean, I'll try and turn that into kind of a question if I can. And I think part of it is to say, well, what will we do to continue to try and find other sources of money to keep that value down? And I think that's a commitment that, yeah, we're not going to give up. We're not going to stop looking for other avenues and stuff to keep that money down, to get things funded, to find that $170,000. And I think that's just something that the KLA owes our new board members, you know, have to be watching all the time to be sure that there's other money, you know, that's around. You know, I think part of it is that we work, and I'm sorry, Barry, I didn't mean to point to you, but I know you work for DNR. And I mean, we continue to try to work with DNR to find areas and avenues that they can help us to do just exactly what it is. So thank you, Paul. More questions? Here. Oh, we have it up there. I'm sorry.
Wayne Seiler, been a owner of the lake south side for about 22 years. I think a lot of concerns here relate to the question of the benefit part of this. And one of the questions I had, excellent presentation on the AIS and the geographic GIS maps to show there's no effect, and then the green, yellow, and the red. The question I have, and I think this can all go towards measuring what the benefit is how is that criteria, or I'm sure it's evolving, established for the green, the yellow, and the red areas, and what it all encompasses, and I'm sure it can be more encompassing as you move forward, maybe to address more of these owners' issues and concerns.
And I think I can answer it, otherwise I can always refer to Steve. The different colors that you have that are on those maps are basically using a DNR, Minnesota DNR scale of 1, 2, or 3. It used to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. And it's a way of rating it. They have a document which talks about sampling, and it shows pictures of a rake and a certain size rake and a certain size sample size, and then it's rated and it's graded, and that's the document. That's how you determine what it is. And that's actually not done by me. That's done by the third-party auditor. And so it's all, and that's why when we went to select someone to be the third-party auditor, we needed to be sure we had someone that was recognized by DNR as being an expert in that area, had lots and lots of experience, and it would follow the protocol that was set out by DNR. And that's how we ended up with Blue Water. Did that kind of answer your question?
It sort of did. Appreciate it, Kim. But my question relates more to.
Can we get the mic back? I'm sorry.
Just show what you're
It relates more to the question of it sounds like a standard DNR rating. But
yes.
My question is more: is it measuring the effectiveness of the treatments on starry stormwater and the clarity of the water, or how is that related?
So it's not measuring clarity of water. What we do, what that is simply a matter of, what would you say, Steve? It's measuring density of the product. And that's the measurement that we actually are using to tell whether our treatments have done anything. And that's a different measurement. Frequency of occurrence is, the frequency of occurrence of people in this area is, right here, looks like maybe 10 out of 20. Right, we're not looking at that. We're looking at density. Those charts that I showed you up there are simply frequency of occurrence of presence or absence. What that was showing up there was presence or absence. The color coding goes in to tell us the density. So when you saw the red and the yellow and the green, that's density. The fact that there's something there is the frequency. So the orange maps that DNR had that I showed you from the previous years, that was strictly frequency of occurrence. So I apologize, it was a little bit of apples and oranges. We look at, Steve has, we don't have some of the DNR data to put it out into all the density maps. Steve's gone back and his folks have gone back and done some of that for us. A great question. I think hopefully that got you closer to what your question was. So.
Over here.
Oh, we got another one over here.
Yeah, Alicia Lebeau. I'm from the city of Paintsville. I have two questions for you. First of all, obviously the health of Lake Koronis has a huge impact on our community as a whole, including the economics of our city and the businesses here. So I am curious, you mentioned Tier 1 and then you mentioned the whole Watershed district. I'm curious about what are the other tiers or what the other possibilities for the taxation of this to maintain the health. And then my second question is, Kevin, we've talked in the past about the fact that these are only the male plants in our lakes, and we've also talked about that in Europe where this plant is a native, they have both the male and the female, and I'm wondering if there's scientific research being done on how the life cycle of the plant is affected if the female plants are introduced.
So, to my knowledge, and to working with university, there's no female plants in the United States, but there are in other countries. So I'm just assuming that there's some sort of an effort over there. A big piece of what we're doing is, and this is where the university is working on what they refer to as the phenology of the plant, and trying to understand what happens with the life cycle and what's going on. And that's pretty incomplete because there's not a lot of published information on starry stonework. University of Minnesota, Dan Larkin has been up here many times, and I work with at the U. He brought together several scientists from around the world to talk about just starry stonewort, and they put out a paper of trying to gather all of what few publications there were to get it all together to try and understand. What we do know is we know starry stonewort grows under the ice. With the University of Minnesota, I've been out there under the ice pulling samples. and it's doing just fine, unfortunately. So we know that it has a similar life cycle, somewhat like curly-leaf pondweed, which goes under the ice. The curly-leaf pondweed, which we have in Koronis also, goes through a senescence, which is kind of a dieback at certain times of the year. So that makes a difference. So that's kind of a lesser of two evils. Let's see. So I think to answer your second question, and you have to remind me the first one. The second question was, are people steady to understand the life cycle of starry stonework? Yes. It's difficult to do in the United States because there's no females. So you can't study that component of it.
But it's not considered an invasive species in the parts of the world where it's native, because they have both of the plants growing there.
In other parts of the world, it's not necessarily where it's native, it's not necessarily considered an invasive. I think the question that I get asked all the time is to say, well, what are they doing to control it over there? And why is it like in England that I've heard that it's almost a rare species over there? And it's like, well, what did they do? And people don't know. There's not a study that really answers that I run across anyhow. Okay, so that was kind of the second one. The first one was...
It was about the taxation and
tiers. The tiers. So the tiers are things that can be defined. It can be that Watershed Petition project can define how big it is. If you want to take what we fondly refer to as tier 1 is those with immediate shore property. You could go tier 2, you could drop back, a block, you could go back out further, you could go out to the whole watershed. You can't go outside the watershed because it's a watershed petition, but that would include Paintsville, itself. And it spreads out the cost. Absolutely, it spreads out the cost to the individual. It's going to go much broader. And then you have to have 25% of those signatures. So it's somewhere there's got to be a balance as to, and that's where I think what Steve said was, let's focus on who's getting probably the most immediate benefit, and that was why I was staying with shore owners. However, on behalf of all of the rest of us, and since I know you're on the city council, we would be most excited to accept funding from the city. Sorry, I know she's going to hate me. I apologize, it was so easy, I apologize, I'm not saying you on, but thank you, I wanted you all to know that I'm trying all the time. Thanks for the question, and anything else, I knew that Alicia was coming, thanks for coming. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Dan Leverance. I've got two quick questions, hopefully Steve and Chris can answer these. Steve, you had mentioned that the petition sunsets after 7 to 10 years. Is that correct? And if so, do we then start the process over again?
Yeah, so when in establishing a petition with them, you determine its life. And typically they're 5, 7, 10, maybe 15 years. And then at that point, things change and you reevaluate. I believe, and Chris, you can clarify, I don't think you have to go and get the petition signed again after the 7 years, but the whole project is reevaluated by the engineers and the whole thing to make sure that it's doing what it was intended to do at that time. And we've looked at both the 7 and 10 years sort of, and that's what we would do in concert with Chris and the staff for this particular project.
Okay. And then also, is there any guarantee within the statute that the funds raised by the taxes, the homeowners on Koronis is actually guaranteed to be used on Koronis? Will it bleed over to another project? And can they take those funds?
Yeah, they're guaranteed to be with the project. It's very similar to a ditch project. They all maintain their own fund balance within the district.
It would very much just be used on Koronis. We have to submit all the expenses. They, being the fiscal agent, would have to review each of those to make sure it complies with the rules of the petition, which would be, water quality, I guess, on Lake Koronis.
It's very specific, the way the petition is written, that it has to be used on Koronis and it has to be used for, in this case, aquatic invasive species.
You know, and it's specific in that regard, but it's loose as to how it's used for aquatic invasive species. I know that doesn't make maybe much sense. So Clearwater Lake over in Wright County, they had a petition several years ago that allowed them to get funds to manage Eurasian milfoil. Okay, and so what happened is all of a sudden they had a problem with zebra mussels. And the money that they had, that was in their petition for Eurasian milfoil, could not be used on zebra mussels. So what they did is they abandoned their original petition. They just let it go, used up all the funds, and they wrote another petition that now says aquatic invasive species, so that they could deal with and handle and use it to other things, other animals, other plants. And so we've learned from that, and we haven't, the lawyer actually wrote it. The lawyer has written it in such a way that yes, it has to be used on Koronis, and how the flow of funds and stuff would go. But if, heaven forbid, something else comes at us that we need to figure out a way, you know, I mean, Eurasian milfoil is another issue that's out there. And if all of a sudden we were to get that, this money would also be able to go to that the way we have the petition written. You know, we mentioned starry stonewort, but we haven't tied our hands. Our hands. So.
Okay, Barbara Schmidt, and we've owned property on Lake Koronis since 1976. I have two questions. The first question is have you considered, because I do believe we need to do something, and we have to create funds to do that, and to help eradicate it or control it. Have you considered, rather than based on property value, based on just square footage owned around the lake? So that's my first question. The second question is, you're looking for additional funds.
I'm not sure if I understood. Restate the question.
Rather than, you said the property value, have you looked at the square footage owned, or the lakefront owned? So if you only have a 50-foot lot or a 100-foot lot.
Okay, all right, good. And Chris Goddard is raising his hand because he's got an answer for that, but I'll bring this back. I'll let Chris answer. I believe I know the answer, but I'll let Chris do it because that's kind of what one of the reasons he's here for. So
This is left up to the appraisers. That is their job to determine how the benefits are determined.
So the
Okay,
answer is
so in
yes.
other words, it hasn't been determined
It
how.
will be determined, yeah.
But it's not up to this group. It's up to the independent appraisers to decide how they need to determine benefits. The group, the group that's doing Piers Lake, I kind of know how they operate, and they typically go off taxable market value. It's defendable in court, is what they're looking at.
Okay, so because when you talk about that 100-foot, the thing is they might own 100 feet of lakeshore, but they live over 100 feet from the lake, so then they wouldn't be contributing. So.
And that's why we hire the appraisers, because they have to come out and look at the properties.
Right, so yeah, I think the answer is they would be. I mean, we have a couple examples where someone has a house that's backed away, but they still have a small access and stuff to the shore. You know, they can have a dock there or something, and that would be considered, yeah. But their house is going to be way back, but that there is a contribution that I believe. I mean, it's not up to me, but that they still have property on the lake. You know, so that would be we would think that they would be considered.
The location of the house has no effect.
Right. Yeah, did you hear what Jeff said? Yeah. Second question.
My second question is you're looking for additional funds as to how you can support this. Have you considered at the public access, when other people are coming in to utilize the lake and bringing in their watercraft and utilizing the lake, charging a fee and collecting a fee at the access?
Well, I knew the question would come. The answer to the question is yes. And so I sit on the Koronis Lake Association Board, and I sit on several other organizations that cover the whole state. And we all consider that. We all are trying to figure that out. And probably the best thing for you to do in that regard is to talk to the legislature, talk to your legislature.
But why can't we do it? You have to answer that question, Kevin.
What's that?
Why don't we do it today?
Yeah, because it's illegal for us to do that today.
It's against the law.
It's against the law. It's a public place, and we can't do that. We also considered parking great big semi-trucks in front of all the accesses, and we said that was illegal too. So, I mean, we considered that as a wild and crazy option that was kind of thrown out at one time. And so the answer is yes, and I think it's a matter of where I think it comes down is that the lakes are considered public. And so with free access to all. I had someone else suggest just recently the idea of, and I think Alicia's gone, I'll talk to her about that later. What about parking? Is there parking outside of the public access? What about charging for that? Parks do that, Three Rivers Park does that, and stuff like that. And use that money to try to help fund stuff like this. I mean, we just the piece though about, charging for a launch, I think that's a big deal, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be opposed to that. The transient voters will be opposed to that, and that's it, but it's how do you capture, I will say this though, that transient voters are paying for boat licenses, they're paying for fishing licenses, and all of that money eventually, there's money that comes from the general fund that goes through the DNR, and that money comes back to manage certain things. I'd love to say there's this huge amount of grant money that comes from DNR, which comes out of the tax basis, that we get a piece of that. But when DNR takes away all of the grants, what do we do? So hopefully at least we'll have some more grants. I'm anxious to get that $90.
So, Tom Shaw, west end of the lake. First of all, thank you all for the work you've done on this. Back to it's great to hear the point that the money that, we potentially would get taxed by the Watershed district would only go to this lake. But I don't always trust government agencies to do what they say they're going to do, because sometimes they don't. So will you as a board have visibility to ensure that that money is spent restricted? Will we be able to see that in future reporting? That's the first.
And I would encourage you at some time to join the board and then help us do that.
Let me just quickly answer your question. So yeah, we pay the expenses of the harvester chemical treatment. So we do that with KLA. We then submit those bills to Chris and his team, who then compensates. So yes, we review each one of them, and in fact initiate each of those expenses to make sure it only goes to its purpose.
So related to that, and kind of touching on what you just talked about, about 10 years ago, we all self-assessed ourselves a sales tax called the Legacy Fund to create clean water and environmental protection. And it looks like none of those dollars are coming here, so I wonder if all of us would have voted for that if we thought when there was really a need it would dry up. Similarly, the DNR is providing zero help, even though all the, so we want to charge fees to people when they launch, and I think that's a great point. But you said they're already paying all these fees, but none of those dollars come to address this. So it just seems like there's an opportunity, and I hear you say you've been trying. What else can we do to get the government to take the money they've already taken from us and spend on this critical issue? I'll bet you, I would sign a petition in a minute to get the government to take the money they've already taken from me and spend on this. I bet you most people in this room would. So is there anything else we can do to kind of drive that?
So the first thing is that the $425,000, that actually is legacy funds.
But it's right up. I'm still paying the tax.
Yeah. Okay. So I wish I didn't know more information about this than I can share with you. So I personally attended several of those meetings where the Lazard Sam's Committee was created. I'll try and go quick. The Lazard Sam's Committee was created to handle the legacy funds. And so I've gone to several of these meetings because the money that has gone through the Initiative Foundation that we get for our $425,000, that came out of that committee. And that committee still feels today, that money was to buy conservation, it was to conserve our heritage. Their interpretation of conservation was clearly different than my personal interpretation when I voted yes for that deal. Their belief that conservation is they will go buy land, which everybody is able to hunt and or fish or whatever, that's what that money was for. So when we went to them to try and get money for AIS, their answer was, that's outside of the scope of what this money can be used for. And so they got pressure because this other organization that I work with, called Minnesota Coalition of Lake Associations, go figure, they all were we were going to legislators, we were going to people like Senator Ingebrigtsen up out of Alexandria, we were going to Kerry Root, we were going to all of these others, and they were putting pressure on the committee, the Lazard Sam's Committee, and saying, no, you've got to find a way to give some money towards AIS. So when they did that, they said to the Initiative Foundation, can you manage this money? So the Initiative Foundation said, yes, we'll manage the money. That's who our grant is with. And the Initiative Foundation, the Lazard Sam's Committee said, but we don't want to fund we only want to fund pilot projects. We are under a 4-year pilot project, and we will only fund new activities. So we couldn't get, if I'd have gone in and submitted for just chemical treatments, nothing. We wouldn't have got it. If I'd have submitted just for mechanical harvesting, mechanical pulling, we'd have got nothing. I had to combine the two, thanks to Tommy Weber, who sat down and brainstormed with me. I had to combine the two to come up with something that was creative and new, and thus we got the money. So it is Lazard Sam's money, but it's dried up. They didn't want to do it in the first place. And they actually had pressure to extend it 1 year. Theoretically, it was up last year. We could have been having this discussion a year ago, but thanks to the Wright County, the work that was happening over in Wright County, it got everybody's money extended 1 year. So thus, I don't know if that more information than you wanted, I apologize. 3 minutes, thank you.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Thanks, Sue. Somebody up top there, Dick. Okay, see you.
I have a policy.
Well, that's Tom.
Oh, Tommy.
I have an insurance policy. If you are interested in having a 99% chance of living forever, come up and sign it. You all have insurance. You have health insurance, life insurance, house insurance, car insurance, boat insurance. Is there anyone in this room who does not pay more than $1,000 a year for insurance? Please raise your hand. $1,000 a year for insurances, of which only pay you if you lose. What you're facing here with this WPP is a possibility of an insurance policy that will prevent loss. And in case we're not paying close attention, we're not making any new lakes. If you lose it, it's gone. And recovery of it, as the other states that have dealt with this and done nothing, is zero. So when you talk about the cost that this is going to place a financial burden, measure it against what you're already paying to sustain your lifestyle.
Question, where else can we go? Over here.
Her first. Okay, she's closer.
Sorry. Hi. We are new lake homeowners. We just moved in last year. And Ray and Andy Lading. and we live on the North Shore. And I fell in love with a home. But I just felt like I needed to make this comment in response to another comment, and I do have a question as well. We fell in love with a home, but our home affords us lake access. We have shoreline, and it's wonderful. And if I get to enjoy that lake access, if it's not our responsibility to somehow maintain the lake, whose is it? So that's a question to ask yourself. My other question would be, if we didn't do anything at all, what would happen?
So there was a group of people that Lake Sylvia over in Wright County again has Starry Stonework. And that group of people, I couldn't go, but they made a trip over to Michigan. And over in Michigan, what took place over there is the DNR in Michigan decided that they would do nothing. Very similar to what happened 10 years ago in Minnesota when DNR decided that they would not take on anything with Eurasian milfoil. And we have way over 400 lakes now infested with Eurasian milfoil in Minnesota. So we know what nothing turned out to. And in Michigan, and I have this confirmed from talking with our consultant, and that they have well over 230 lakes. When I looked at it, when Karen and I looked a couple years ago, that was the number. It's over 300 now, and they're infested. And any lake that is shallower than Starry, any shallow lake has basically just been let to go. Starry Stonework has grown to the surface. And once it gets to the surface, it's not only unusable, but you're now subject to what's called an HAB, a harmful algae bloom. And so you get blue-green algae that starts growing on the lake. It stinks. It's harmful to animals. It's harmful to people. I mean, it's deadly to animals. Probably not so good for people either. And that's what it goes into. We on Koronis, though, could face that in areas. The good news is, and lucky for us, we have some deep pockets and deep places in the lake. So that would be, that would help us doing it. So I'm not painting doom and gloom, but we also have some areas on the lake that are pretty darn shallow. And I think like when you start thinking about the southeast part of the lake, I mean, you get down where the inlet is, it gets pretty shallow. So you'd be subject to harmful algae blooms, going in there. So, and I just talked with the Clemson grad student that was here Wednesday, and just to kind of confirm all of that. So, and his major professor is Dr. John Rogers, who's our consultant. So, did that answer your question?
It did, and we're very impressed by your efforts and your methodic approach to trying to figure out what works. It is hard to be the first people to do anything. Yeah. And it's really easy to criticize that because it hasn't been done before. And so we appreciate the efforts that have been made thus far.
My name is Virgil Brooks. I've got a house on Windmill Point. It used to be Ron Francho's house. Bought it 10 years ago to this month. Anyway, I've been listening here all the time here, and what was said that the DNR isn't contributing anything at this point, correct?
DNR has contributed their help. They're on the lake as part of the lake vegetation management plan at least 3 to 4 times a year, and we try to work very closely with them. If you're asking for financial money, they've got grants and stuff, but we're actually doing some of their research for them because theoretically DNR is supposed to be doing research in that area, but we're doing it. So what they do is they add it to our list. So we have to do it. I do it.
I looked at the article in the last newsletter, DNR Information News, and I'm finding something in there that is not true in this article. You're saying, somebody's saying, the hydraulic jets, which is what they called it, are illegal. I'm here, standing here to tell you they are not illegal. And the reason I know that is because I had started stonework at my property in 2016, 1 year after you discovered it on the other side of the lake. So, anyway, I attended your meetings here, and so I researched as much as I could. I do know people in Michigan that are living, they said the stonework came, everybody was excited. It just kind of eased off. It kind of ate its way, ate one or two out of the muck, and people are living with it. I got business associates from there. Anyway, but last September 2018, I was cutting the lawn at that house, and there was a DNR boat at my dock. Okay, I'm looking at him, I made a cut a little more lawn, and he's looking up there, and all of a sudden he starts waving me down to the lake. Okay, so I'm wondering what's up. I see you have these, we call it an aqua thruster, which blows the stonework away from my dock. And he's wondering how things were working. I said, they're just fine. I can drive my pontoon out of here again. And so I had a conversation with him for about an hour, talking about the starry stonework. In 2017, I saw, the question is, I've heard statements made here before that weren't in the form of question. Anyway,
we've allowed you to go, so keep going. Get the. I do want to go back to it a little bit.
Just listen. So he said, I see you're operating it within the tolerances, which is 18 inches above the ground, 18 inches above the ground. And he said, I see you have neighbors that have them also. And at that point he says, you are not in any kind of problem. He said, you're running it the way it was designed to work. And so I did tell him, well, the DNR would be taking care of the project or the problem. I wouldn't have to do this. And he said, you're right. And I asked him about this little pedal boat operation that you've got going to pick up the starry stonework out in the lake. And he says, they are spreading it. We are not in favor of what the Lake Association is doing. He told me that for a fact, and I'll swear to it in court. That we are not in favor. They have spread it over the whole lake. So a week later, there was another DNR boat next to my property, and we had a couple interns apparently, and they were looking for the species that were, okay, the DNR guy told me that they're picking up the natural species that are supposed to be there, and so I had, in 1 week, there was another boat there from the DNR, and they were looking in the lake with a tube. And they told me all the original aquatic species are still here. So there's no problem using the truss. And your article says it's illegal. You should not be putting issues like this out.
Would you look to see what the name of the source is of that information? DNR. We took it directly off of the DNR website. So we're not saying anything. It says source DNR May 26, 2019 DNR newsletter. We just copied it from there.
Okay.
So we didn't. The Koronis Lake Association. We just put this in here because we get people saying every year it's absolutely okay to do it, and there are, but there's requirements to go with that. So So thank you. I mean, I'm not sure what the question is there, other than the correction that that's from DNR.
Why was something printed that wasn't true? That wasn't.
But it's from DNR.
We'll have to ask the DNR to. Okay, yep.
The article says, at the very end, it's a subject will find if you displace the sediment at the bottom. It didn't say there were legal hedges. If you pointed out, sir, if you have it in the right position above the bottom, it's legal. The article says essentially if you're digging up the bottom, then it's not.
Okay, yep, good, thank you.
Okay,
Any other?
other questions and stuff that we can, I'm sorry, we're losing a lot of people. It's gone a long time. You guys have hung in there just great.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah, I'm great, yeah.
Question?
Me too. Everybody, Karen, do you want me to final words of thank you and stuff for our birthday? Oh, we have one more question.
Final question.
I've got a lot of respect for the people that are on the Lake Association that are doing all of this, but I also got a lot of respect for a lot of other friends who live on the lake. And when they have told, and so you kind of get caught in the conflict with it, and a lot of them don't like the approach of 25% petition and what it's going to affect the taxes. When you put up a toll road or a toll bridge, you charge the people that are using it. If you live next to a golf course, it impacts your property maybe a little bit more than if you're just living in a city street. If that golf course needs to make improvements, they don't tax the people that live next to it. Only they may increase a little bit there, but basically they're charging the people that are using it. To use your comment, you said it was a pretty wild and crazy option to try and charge everybody that's going to use the lake and stuff. But I think this is a pretty wild and crazy option too, to say the lake owners are going to foot the bill for this. There's a lot of people out there who are friends and are friends of you folks. Some of them just don't want to speak up. But there's a lot of people that really are bothered by this. So I don't have a question, I had a comment. And you kept saying all the time here that, where's your question? But as I read the bottom of the agenda, it says, questions, comments. So that's my comment.
So thank you. Yeah, I mean, and I think you heard before, it's like if we could figure out, we just don't know how to put a toll charge right at the access. And
that's not an option. It's against the law. It's public water.
Yeah.
Who's going to fix this? My name is Doug Peterson. I don't think I need a mic. I moved out here in 2017 for the fact that your association is doing such a good job with this invasive species. I don't mind paying an additional $300 a year to deal with a problem, otherwise I'll live next to a cesspool. That's my loss. I don't want that. I don't like some taxes. I don't like the sales tax. But what's the option?
Thank you, Doug.
I'm for this. I don't want taxes to go up, but I'm for it.
Closing words, Steve?
Well, no, I think for people that have comments and want to have questions, please contact any one of us to have ongoing dialogue. We really appreciate your interest. We never thought, we're not all for this and our opposition, we know that. We respect that, but hopefully the purpose of this was to educate you in terms of what's happening. You know the process moving forward. We hope to secure the petitions by the end of the summer. You can contact any one of us, and thanks all for coming. Take care.
Thank you.